bestowed upon you the power of the sun. A mighty sword! Strike while the iron's hot. For Camelot! For Avalon! Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Happy Thursday, SMITE fans, and welcome to another day and another week of the SMITE Pro League. I know, it's Thursday, it's 1 p.m. You're wondering, wow, we got SMITE Esports, and we do have some SMITE Esports, SMITE Pro League, and thank you so much to Prime Gaming for allowing us to do this and being the title sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. If you don't already have a Prime membership, then go ahead and grab one of those and then link it over to your Twitch account so you can get some free games, some free extra content in your games, as well as a free Twitch Prime subscription to your favorite streamer. Remember, every single month, that catalog of game, that catalog of extra content for those games, and every single month, that Twitch subscription renews itself, and you get new stuff every single time. So thank you so much for Prime Gaming for being the sponsor of Season 9 of the SPL, and make sure that you pick up your Prime Gaming subscription. I'm J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me on the desk as we get to kick off our first day of the 6th week of the SMITE Pro League. Remember, we're going to have a lot of SMITE to go through. I know it's a Thursday. You're probably normally expecting, oh man, SCC would be going on. It would have been happening like 3 hours ago or so at that point. 2-3 hours ago, we would have been jumping on that. But instead, it's all about the SMITE Pro League for here and all of next week as well. And for the SMITE Pro League and for all these teams out there, they're fighting for their opportunity to make it to the SMITE World Championship. And it starts here because top 6 teams make it to that Phase 3 playoffs. It happens on November 30th. After that, the bottom 2 who don't make it, we wait for them all the way until January 6th whenever they join into the group stage. And joining them will be the 2 teams that don't qualify from Phase 3 playoffs for the SPL, as well as the top 2 teams from both EU and NASCC Road to Worlds, or SOC, depending on which teams do make that through in the 2 weeks in December after the playoffs happen. And all of that, once we've qualified our top 4 from Phase 3, once we've qualified our final 4 from the group stage, then on January 13th through the 15th in Arlington, Texas at the Esports Stadium and Arena out there, that's when we'll have our top 8 teams to qualify to see who will be the world champion for Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. Easiest way to put it, win games, make it to Worlds a lot easier for yourself. And to start those games out in week number 6, we can take a look at the schedule to see how today is going to go and how the rest of it. Make no mistake, it is 4 days of SMITE Pro League, 10 sets this week. It'll be the same thing next week, 10 sets to be played out there. And we kick everything off with the Jade Dragons and Atlantis Leviathans today. Solar Scarabs, Tartarus Titans immediately after that. Tomorrow we'll have the Valkyries and the Warriors, Kings and the Bolts, and then a double, triple header that's going to take place on Saturday and Sunday. So make sure that you're tuning in because, again, every single one of these games matter. And for some of these teams, not just winning their games, but also kind of preying on the downfall of teams above them as we can kind of look at the standings out there. The Atlantis Leviathans and the Dragons sitting nice and pretty at that top 2 spot. Scarabs and the Valkyries at the bottom 2. But for both of those teams, whether it be 3rd trying to break into the top 2 or 7th trying to break into top 6, it is 2 sets separating those teams out there. You see 4 versus 2 for the Bolts and the Valkyries, 7 versus 5 for the Dragons and Kings. So winning is not the only important thing. Yes, you do need to win your games, but you also kind of are hoping for some teams to lose out here. And maybe for the Camelot Kings, Trelly, as we get to jump into our first game, hoping that the Leviathans can remain that number 1 team, hoping that the Leviathans can find a win against the Dragons to make that gap just a little bit closer and a little bit easier for themselves to break in.
Yeah, I think I echo a little bit of what Mifflin was talking about during the waiting room. Like, a lot of teams are preying on the Jade Dragons' downfall because Leviathans at the moment have a pretty good lock on first seed, assuming they don't lose here, which is a big opportunity for the Jade Dragons to take that away from them, especially at the start of this 2-week period, because that just makes the whole standings thing a lot more interesting. But I mean, it's certainly not going to be easy, right? The Jade Dragons, if they start off hot, if they can take like some early kills, some early leads, they usually come off to a really explosive set.
And one thing to remember, we touched it briefly on the waiting room, and I'll just reiterate it here, the Beads and Aegis interaction is still active within the game, so because of that, we do have our ruling in place where you can only have one or the other of those rugs. So either you can have Beads or you can have Aegis. And that's kind of shifted up the meta just a little bit. We've seen some picks kind of make its way back in. The Susanos, the Vulcans kind of re-risen back up, even though he was already coming in strong in this phase. And even the Poseidon. And I think that, Charlie, for players on the Jade Dragons, for Pagon and Scream specifically, those are picks that these guys thrive with. I mean, we saw what the Yu Huang was capable of with Pagon. Really loves to get that late game hyper damage kind of style of play out there. Scream loves to play these very active and very early in your face style of picks. So I think for a team like the Dragons, who do like to fight really early on, this meta that has kind of emerged due to that interaction between those two relics has kind of maybe given the Jade Dragons a little bit of an extra boost.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they value the early fighting so much, and when you're forced into that situation, you know that you can get active because you don't have to worry about that situation, right? Scream loves playing these all-in style jungles that, you know, usually you'd have to go and get a relic down, but because you're not worried about that, you know, the Pele's, the things like that, the Bastets even, you know, those are the characters that you love just going in, doing as much damage as possible. And then, yeah, your team can follow up if you need them to, but you love a situation where you can just go in and you don't have to worry about that damage immunity. So I think it does bode well here for the Dragons. Not to say that the Leviathans don't also appreciate that, but we'll get to them. Pagon and Scream love getting active in the early. They love to force these fights whenever possible. And you were talking about the Yu Huang. It feels real good when you can just 100-0 someone late game and have no real fear. Because the shell is just not going to do the same thing, right? It's only going to take away about 300 of that damage. If you're hitting everything on Yu Huang, your 100-0 potential certainly still there.
Yeah, it's just such a difficult team already to kind of fight up against the Jade Dragons. A very active early and PvP-oriented style of team in the early game compared to a lot of the other teams in the league. You think over teams like the Camelot Kings, who are a little bit more PvE-focused when it comes to early. I mean, they're on second one of Scorpions spawning in. They're there. We've been seeing a lot more early kinds of Gold Furies being picked up, Pyromancers on the spot, and it's a team, at least even like the Atlantis Leviathans, that also kind of echo kind of a mixture of that mindset where farming is a very potent option for this team. You look at Shinto; he's always kind of topping that GPM chart for his team, even within players into the league. Panatom sometimes has to give up some of that farm and allow Shinto to get there. But when you're letting Shinto get to that amount of farm up there, sure, the early game may suffer. They may fall down 2,000-3,000 gold. But then Shinto is 4 items in when your enemy mid laner is only 3 at that point, and you're allowed to take some of these very powerful picks, and like the Vulcan, like the Poseidon, that he was very accustomed to already kind of going to at that point.
Now, I know that we don't have, you know, an insight into the scrims, but I have to imagine with the way that Panatom has been playing as of recent, maybe Shinto dials back on stealing a bit of his farm, man. I mean, it is, if you could get this jungler off to like a bit more of a lead, just give him a little bit more farm, I just imagine he hard carries the game almost every single time. So I know that Shinto is known for, you know, stealing those back camps, hogging a bit of the jungler's farm, but with the way Panatom's playing, I might be like, hey, do you mind if I just get my back camps every once in a while? Because turns out I'm pretty nuts right now. Like, I'm able to impact this map like a mid laner just can't do. But we have been seeing a lot of Shinto popping off as well. I mean, he's one of the highest scorers in fantasy for a reason. He's able to also play these 100-0 style mages, throw some hunters into the mid lane too, why not? And I think making sure that both your mid and your jungle get some farm, certainly the way the Leviathans want to play.
That play there still gives me chills. I remember watching that one live, and that was just an insane play that you get to pull off. Not only do you get to push 3 people with dueling dragons, you get 3 with the fire right after. A combo that, in a world of both beats and the ages being active for you, is something that you might get to pull off, but you don't get that kind of damage numbers out there. You don't get to make those kinds of impact plays. So, and it's one thing I even touched up onto the waiting room, which is I don't expect Panatom to ever be able to touch Susano again, as far as this is concerned, with just how good he has been on that pick, with how good the Leviathans have been. I don't imagine a lot of those picks will go their way. And we had a moment to sit down with the mid laner for Leviathans, talk to him. So we'll go ahead and throw it over to that interview video.
I think we did pretty well. We did pretty amazing. We expect. We did the 2-0 that was expected. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about my team. We played really well too. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. So the Jade Dragons, they're looking well. They're not looking that well that I can imagine, but for sure they're the toughest team in the league right now to face. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting match. I think they're all playing really well, but for me, it's like I think Scream is the threat for that team, for Jade Dragons. We always feel so confident against whatever team we play, so yeah, we're gonna do well and we're gonna like play a good Smite.
And one of the things Shinto mentions in that interview is that he really does feel that Scream is probably the big threat for that team. He's definitely one of the very big playmakers, a very loud personality on that squad, and definitely for the Jade Dragons, he was a perfect fit for these guys, because the Dragons were already a team that liked to run it down a little bit earlier, kind of get that fighting going. And then they bring Scream over from the Scarabs, who was one of the players who allowed his team when he was on the Scarabs to kind of play that very similar style. So it was a match made in heaven, I imagine, for Scream coming over to the Dragons. And it's no surprise seeing that Shinto and other players on the Leviathans see him as the main threat. We'll get to see what some of those picks end up getting to be in this world as we jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Atlantis Leviathans and the Jade Dragons. I'm just going to reiterate that I don't imagine Susano makes it through picks and bans, especially for a player like Panatom. I mean, the last 3 times that he's gotten Have This God has been criminal performances. I think he had like a 12-0, an 8-0, and like a 7 or 8-5 kind of game out there. Insane what this player can do through, but so far the bans are not quite reflecting that, Trelly. Hades, Amuzin Cobb, the Morgan, and Umoja, the first 4 bans out.
Yeah, still some scary stuff, I imagine. You know, it's not like hunters aren't good in this meta, and AMC is definitely going to facilitate that, so I don't hate anything that we're seeing just yet. I do want to echo one thing that Shinto said was the fact that, you know, the Jade Dragons look good, but not that good. But also, that he said they're the most difficult team to face, but they're not looking that good. I think that shows a level of maybe not even overconfidence. Just when you're sitting at the top of the standings like this, you can say things like that. But Shinto, and I imagine the rest of the Leviathans, also not too worried going into this matchup, giving a bit of respect, but also saying like, yeah, they're all right, but like we are the top dogs around here. The Khepri ban going to be coming through, and a burst meta, definitely something that you want to be trying to take away, as well as Shinto Ceranos. That will leave open the Daji, so no insta-pick Susano, and I imagine that's probably because Daji was available, and it's not going to be a favorable matchup. Leviathans are going to grab their jungler something real early, but that does leave open a lot of what Scream likes to pick up. I was going to say, you know, the Pele, for example, is still available, but it's going to be the first pick Ishtar. Something that Panda Cat has also liked, also taking away from Zapman, could be the right call.
Yeah, this Ishtar is definitely something that Zapman's been very comfortable on for Leviathan, so I imagine not just a pick to get something for Panda Cat that works really well with him, but also to take that comfort away from Zapman and round it out with the dual lane of this Ymir. Though we have been seeing Ishtar flex towards mid a couple of times, though not sure if we'll see Pagon pick this one. It definitely does feel more so like a Panda Cat god in that regard, but for Leviathans, a couple of options over towards them now. Support could be a good play to grab early on now before maybe some more bans get thrown there. I mean, with Umoja, Khepri, Ymir already kind of taken at the top. If you're wrong, maybe what are some of the picks you're looking towards at this point?
You have a couple different options here. If you're trying to play for pressure, I was going to say, then you could look towards that Cabrakan, but because the Charybdis gets locked in, the clear is fine, but you'd think probably something a little bit safer. Vulcan is going to be the call, so already some great burst damage on the side of Leviathans. They've got a very solid early, but also they're cementing their late game so well with a pick like this. Vulcan's going to be scary to deal with going to the Jade Dragons, but as you were saying, Wrong You, probably going to take some even more bans here, right? That's the benefit of picking your support early. You don't really get that. You can take away so many options, especially holding off on that support pick. But there's a lot that comes to mind. I imagine the Terra is something that's still pretty solid if you're trying to get pressure in that lane. If you just want to be a facilitator for your team, as well as just all the different guardians that are going to make sure that Charybdis is fine. You don't really have to babysit a Charybdis because she already has so much safety in her kit. So you have to imagine Zap is going to say, just go help the team. I'll be sitting on my island for a bit. You can go whatever you want at this point.
So with the carries and pretty much all of the backline and dive now for the Atlantis Leviathans locked in, it'll just be left over to their frontliners of Haddix and Wrong You when it comes to the bottom 2. Jade Dragons still have quite a few decisions that they can make there. And typically what we've seen for the answer to the Daji has been a pick like Yu Huang. It's something that Pagon's very comfortable on. Would not be surprised if maybe that ends up being the selection for the Jade Dragons mid laner. Gives them essentially 3 forms of CC immunity if he does end up picking up that beads early on, to maybe deal with that Pow Lao to give himself a little bit of extra safety up against this squad. The Dragons are taking some time. It'll be Guan Yu as the selection for the Dragons. How do you feel about Guan within the top 3 here, Trelly?
It's going to be something that gets, it doesn't win out in lane, but I think the team fight is what you're picking that Guan Yu for. I imagine if Scream is trying to play through Fine OK over in that solo lane, Guan Yu definitely does set up for some nice ganks, but also, again, you're playing for that team fight. So, seems like that's the call here. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw some bans put over towards Scream to not try and facilitate that Guan Yu, and that is what we're going to see. The Pele comes through, and, maybe something like the Bastet, some sort of lockdown CC, because with the Ymir and the Guan, already a fair bit of beads burning on the side of the Jade Dragons. But you're pretty much trying to cement yourself for a very nice team fight. You've got that sustain, as well as, as long as the cooldowns are constantly resetting, you're constantly hitting that dash, that heal, you can usually get off 2 cavalry charges in the middle of a fight, and that's going to be disruptive, especially for a pick like Vulcan. Lots of knock-up immunity built into Guan's kit, and that's really your only appeal to, assuming your team's not with you.
Couple of Haddock-centric bans on the side of the Dragons with Cthulhu and Horus. Meanwhile, it's focused towards Scream. For Leviathans, banning away both Pele and Osiris, something that, without Osiris, he actually picked up the first competitive triple-double in the last, I think it was like 2.5 years or so that we had seen there. So maybe no surprise seeing what he was able to couple with Fine OK to do so. I think it was coupled with the Camazotz in the game that he was able to run that one. So now I wonder where Haddox ends up going to, because as far as Haddox's last few games that he has been playing, has been a lot of Cthulhu, a couple of games in there, a Horus even picked up. Xing Chen and King Arthur, kind of the other two that have gone over for the Leviathans. Do you maybe have a preference of one of those, given the composition that the Dragons have and given what the Leviathans already picked up?
Yeah, considering that it's only one hunter so far, I don't think the Xing Chen is really jumping out at me. That's something that needs to be grabbed, but it does bring a level of safety as well as setup if that's something Haddox wanted to go to. Actually going to be a Kalina hover here. And that would be interesting, right? That is something that we haven't seen in the meta in quite some. All right, now I'm just assuming they're trolling, right? There's no way.
Nah, that's the patented wrong you Giannis support.
No, I've
man.
seen it. Has it ever worked? Because I haven't seen it work one single time. And by work, I mean win. Like, it's gotta get a dub before I respect it. And I think that is just a thinker, right? They're saying let's just put something up while we consider what we're actually gonna play. And considering the fact that there are still a fair bit of supports open, they're probably just trying to weigh all their options. Something that's got to be able to peel for Vulcan, as well as setup, because it can't be all on Daji to try and pull these beads. Now we're seeing that King Arthur hover. That would be able to burn some beads here. That ultimate, pretty great at doing so, as well as the cripple field with the hamstring. But, it looks like Ganesh. I was going to say, you got to have some form of initiation, and the Dharmic Pillars, looks like that's exactly what they've been looking for.
So a couple of big single targets to maybe take those beads away and give Daji an option to maybe pull in with that pal out, or have Daji break the beads and have somebody to reinitiate in that regard. The Jade Dragons did pick up the Hu Huang earlier on in their top 4. Now, down to their final selection, need something for Scream. With a full look at the draft that's been picked up, you're up against a Daji directly in the jungle. You've lost out on a couple of your picks with that Pele with the Osiris, but Susano notably still available, something that could maybe find some decent picks out there, though I imagine Susano to Ganesh, probably not a very fun matchup for that god, Trelly.
Yeah, I mean, Ganesh isn't fun into pretty much anyone that wants to get into the back line, but, Scream, the ever unpredictable player. I imagine, I've been talking about the Bastet all game. I'm not going to even say that it's a great matchup, but it's just something he likes to go to even when it's not looking good. So, could be the option, but it looks like we'll just grab that Kalina. Pretty happy that Haddox didn't end up locking in that Kalina, and that's going to help out with some pressure in the jungle. Still has that late game burst damage, still has that level of unpredictability through the wall that Kalina is able to do, and that's always annoying to deal with, especially when you don't have any easy ways out. Like Vulcan is just going to have to book it on foot and hope that you can outrun a Kalina. Same sort of style for Charybdis, at least having that Whirlpool immunity, but team fight presence here for the Jade Dragon seems to be the call. I've got my eyes on Pagon. Whenever he's got Yu Huang, I'm looking to see where those dueling dragons are connecting and how many people he's hitting with them, because he's rarely missing, let's be honest.
I'm always not only just looking at the Hu Huang with Pagon there, but I'm looking at the jungler on the opposite side, because in their matchup against the Kings, it was almost always Captain Twig getting slammed by the dueling dragon. So going to be keeping my eyes to see where Panatom is during the fights to make sure that he's not the one getting hit by that one. So team fight, kind of the name of the game for the Jade Dragons, as you say out here. But for the Atlantis Leviathans, with this composition, with the Daji, the Ganesh, the King Arthur, and some follow-up from the Vulcan, do you think the Leviathans have at least a similar level and presence of team fight with this composition?
Yeah, they certainly do. My concern whenever I see a Daji has always been, Daji's got great burst. In fact, I would say even without the Powwow, she's got 100-0 potential, onto these immobile mages, but Yu Huang has a great amount of safety. So someone's got to be burning these beads here for Panatom, and it looks like with the Dharmic Pillars, with that silence, that's going to be super annoying to try and deal with. You may be able to force some of those beads out from the Jade Dragons, but you're pretty much waiting for Haddox to rotate in, because your team fight doesn't look that strong until your King Arthur decides to join. But if Panatom's getting active early, it doesn't even matter if you're going to be fighting a man down. Daji can take someone out of the fight before it even starts, really.
Yeah, we kind of talked a little bit about early fighting, Yu Huang and Kalina. Definitely some good early game CC and damage from there, but in the same regard, Vulcan and Daji a lot of very early game damage in their regard as well. So could be maybe a very scrappy early 2v2, at least in that mid lane over there. We've also been seeing the junglers make rotations over towards the left side of the map, go to that dual lane, and try and get that interceptor out there. So I think a lot of eyes on the two junglers for this squad to see where they put their attention and focus. Do they focus it towards mid? Do they go towards that scepter? Or maybe do they make their way over to the solo lane, try and help out with the totem coup? We'll have to see what happens as we jump it onto the battleground. Game number 1 between the Atlantis Leviathans, the Jade Dragons, the number 1 and 2 seed, starts right here with Dulcet and Mifflin.
That's right. And the last time these two teams faced off, it was a 3-game, very, very competitive set between the two squads. And if we've talked a lot about top 2 versus bottom 2, top 6 all going to phase 3 playoffs. Also, the distinction between first and second seed, pretty important. Those two teams, regardless, get a bye. But then just getting, kind of that worst seed that trickles in, the winner of the bottom couple of teams that just make it to phase 3 playoffs, with how competitive the league is, could be very, very important. And that's a long way of saying this very well could be a battle for first seed going into phase 3 playoffs between the Leviathans and the Jade Dragons. And Miff, I think adaptation is the key now. Beads Aegis, similar situation. Players can only pick Beads or Aegis. But now we've had a week to prepare.
And I'm expecting adaptation to be there. Mainly in positioning, seems like the picks have gone largely unchanged. This is an interesting strategy. Zapping wrong, you just saying, hey, be annoying on the green buff. We'll simply head elsewhere.
Well, Mike won't drop any of the Golder experience from purple. Zap and Wrong, you kind of a traditional split from what we've seen prior to support invades. And Pandacat will solo out the purple buff on the Jade Dragons side of the jungle. But will he miss any minions? Doesn't look like it. And so Pandacat gets full value. Mike will be just a little bit behind. And Wrong, you and Zapman Miff a pretty typical early start, but this is the advantage that Pandacat gets in early level 2.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Pandacat's able to do with this slight lead. Should be able to get a majority of the lead going into this next wave as well. Those lob autos make it very difficult for gods like Charybdis to legitimately clear wave. Has to get in that melee point blank if you want to hit the entirety of the wave with the piercing auto on Charybdis. So very easy for Pandacat to just apply poke there. That is an interesting response, though, from the Leviathans. Maybe concerned that Mike would waste too much of their time or was a bit too much of a steal risk on the green. Just leaving that experience in gold there.
Yep.
I mean, now you can have Panatom rotate through. Should be a slight advantage to the jungler of the Leviathans, but I'm curious to see how that pans out in the dual lane itself.
Will likely be level 5 for Panatom when we finally see this Daji go in. Of course, you have to build beads against Daji, but with the severe amount of burst damage that'll be happening a bit later on in this game, worried about some of the carries' lives once those beads go down. So when we talk about adaptation, the Leviathans adopted this Charybdis pick, given the no Aegis most of the time for the AD carries. So Charybdis not super new. Also the Yu Huang Myth on the other side. 2 picks that are kind of doing the same things in their respective roles. Temporary immunity, kind of get out of jail free cards in some instances. And so on one side, I think you get Shinto, who's got the damage adaptation to no Aegis. On the flip side, you got Pagon with the defensive adaptation. How about a 2v2 over in solo, though? Final K has taken a chunk of damage, but so has Panatom. And it looks like junglers will head their way away, but we're scrapping over purple buff. It's time the Jade Dragons have dropped it, and the Leviathans will lose their purple. Mike picks it up. Zapman gonna let Pandacat escape for free. Whirlpool with a knock-up and a bit of damage. And a good wall from Polar Bear Mike. This is a long, drawn-out engagement. And the freeze will not get the stun. And therefore, Zapman lives. Playing with fire, though, sticking around for that purple.
Yeah, Zap really not under risk of dying there. 1 auto is all it would take. Good reset from Shinto. Make sure there is no steal from PBM, but
starting again.
Yeah,
it's
look,
happening again.
Wrong, you had Shell. No way Zapman dies. Still a wild decision to go in with the Whirlpool. Maybe just saying it's pretty unlikely that PBM had grabbed the wall for himself. But it was likely. PBM did, so a lot of damage returned. That said, the Jade Dragons, they're establishing their pace early. It's aggression all the way across the map, but the Leviathans have done a good job of mitigating some of that loss.
Wow, and look at this. The Leviathans steal the purple buff
Yoink.
right back on the other side. Nobody's going to be able to go pick it up, but eye for an eye for the Atlantis Leviathans and the Jade Dragons over on the left side of the map. So all things equal, they've remained competitive over on left. And now level 5 for both Panatom and Scream. And Bede's cooldowns, very, very important here for the Jade Dragons. Of course, Pagon can sort of float away. Maybe you're hoping if you're the Leviathans, you can get some beads off Panacat. Maybe force the ultimate out of fine. Okay, make life easier for Panatom.
If I'm Panatom, I'm running down Mike right now before he gets the
good point.
defense online, before it's that Mail Renewal or Gauntlet of Thebes, doesn't have any CC immunity until he ticks over to level 5. Yeah, Panatom needs to make his way over and make sure this Ice Giant pays already. Starting to work his way to this side of the map, and there's the follow-up, Shinto right behind him.
Yeah, should be an initiation here from Panatom. Sure is. Up to the Pal-Ow Mike. Still level 4, and Mike is going to get dragged into the Earthshaker. You wrote it up, Miff, and the Leviathans listened. That'll be first blood, and perfect timing to equalize the gold.
Just a simple pickup there. Mike playing a bit too far forward. Doesn't have a rotation from his own ally, trying to pick up that scepter. I wasn't expecting Shinto to make the rotation as well, but it simplified the entire engagement. Does leave your right-hand side of the map completely exposed. Haddix has to defend his blue buff on his own. Best of luck in that situation. Seems as if he was capable of it, though. Has the blue around his belt, so Scream rotates over, gets nothing for it. That's pretty awesome for the Leviathans.
It feels A-okay, really, across the map. It's going to be a threat for Mike now. It's not like his life suddenly gets easier. I mean, with level 12 rolling around, you probably get something
He fully upgraded.
utility-based, right, just fully upgrades the med. Level 5, you often see Shards of Ice just kind of used to drop around the time Pal-Ow comes out as well, but maybe a recurring target here, Miff, even when more defensive itemization gets online early in this game. Wonder if Mike might just be it for Panatom.
If he doesn't tick over to level 5 soon, he might just be it very soon
There you
as
go.
well. There it is. So Shards of Ice available. Pal-Ow, gonna have to wait until Shards of Ice is gone if you actually want to pull him in. Otherwise, Mike, pretty safe now. Doesn't need to concern himself too much, but still not very tanky. Positioning could be the Ymir's downfall. Cook the Ascetic, very nice. Gives you a little bit of CDR, some healing, some mana. But foregoing that first item or slowing it down as much as he has, Mike's now 6 minutes in, hasn't finished up a single tier 3. I might just jump on him anyway.
Yeah. Who do you think, this is a way zoomed out conversation, who are the big winners in your mind? Beads and Aegis not being able to be bought in
It's junglers.
conjunction. Is it just junglers
It's
full stop?
It's 100%. Look, junglers are out there burning all the relics, and we're supposed to be the guys that are making use of the burnt relics as well. It's tough.
Shinto, his relic burnt. It's Beads down, and the Scream from Scream hands over a kill to Pagon. That'll tie it up over at 1. Pretty simple rotation in. That's the threat. So Panatom has Pal-Ow. Mike is here, but that'll send Panatom right back. And a nice play from the Jade Dragons to keep the score equal.
Yeah, great pull from Pagon. Sets that up completely. And now Haddix had to defend his blue on his own last time around. He's got some allies this time.
Haddix takes his ult towards Scream, up into the Pal-Ow. Goes one, Wrongy with a decent silence, but Mike with the Shards of Ice just answers back, so there's no Pal-Ow pull.
Wall.
Double wall, but just one freezed off shell popped by Wrongy. Pagon doesn't see his opening, but Wrongy sure does. Where does Earthshaker land? On to no one, and Mike left limping away. Wrongy won't escape, and a double stun from Fine OK seals the deal on this fight. And after all that, just one pick on the elephant.
Man, what a massive whiff from Shinto there. You don't see that too often. Throws it, trying to grab everybody, misses everybody in exchange. Should have just gone for Mike on his own. The CC locked out from Haddix would have kept him there. Earthshaker connects, all of a sudden it's probably going a little bit better for the Leviathans, but instead it's a clean fight for the Jade Dragons. You delay the rotation from Shinto, so he misses out on a lot of farm in the center of the map, just losing it to that tower. Jade Dragons come out massively ahead off of that one.
Who are the big losers of the Beads Aegis debacle? Carries?
Well,
But you can't say mids though, because suddenly like Poseidon and Vulcan are looking real good. Is the 80 carries, you think?
it carries in mid laners to a certain extent.
Or are there
right?
no big losers? You know who the big winners are? The viewers.
The viewers are definitely massive winners. Yeah, I would say ADC's probably hit the hardest by not being able to pick up that Aegis, but not if you're Charybdis. You've got it built into the kit. So
Right.
Zatman, he's strategized for this one.
Right, figured it out. you're going up against Ymir, and so oftentimes you'll see a shell picked up somewhere anyway. Wrong U's already got it, but maybe Phantom. Panda Cat has ult. So does Zapman. Nice wall from Mike, but just the Zapman ult to walk away. And so that's one of the forms of CC immunity for Zapman. Wonder if maybe Scream then tries to take advantage. Not so much lockdown there for the Kleena anyway, but anytime you can get that Maw down, back on a cooldown, it's a really nice start. And so the Jade Dragons, a little bit of value over on the left.
Yeah, maybe the Jade Dragons start looking towards Gold Fury. You don't have the best ability to actually kill Zapman as a Kleena, but you shred objectives, and Zapman a little bit less likely to step up in situations like this. Fortunately for the Leviathans, Oracle Vision does belong to them, so the Jade Dragons won't be able to sneak that one away. Maybe Pyromancer, though, about 30 seconds from that respawning. I'm just waiting for the Veil to get torn and Scream to, like, one-shot an objective. That's generally what you're picking that Kleena for throughout the early game. Once you're in the late game, she's more of a standard assassin, be able to jump onto that back line very easily. Shinto in particular can have a very hard time dealing with Kleena. Just hiding in those walls. No Aegis means you're just getting locked down. The slow finds value pretty consistently. But until the late game, Scream's there to just absolutely decimate PvE bosses. Yep. Like Pyros, Gold Furies. He'll make short work of them.
You know what we are, and we should be happy about, Myth? Was it you and I casting together when we saw a bunch of shells and none of them got upgraded to Phantom Shell for
against
like
the
ever?
Yamoja, yeah.
Right. It is just a Ymir, but Rongyu has gone ahead and gotten Phantom Shell, so check that box. That one's already dealt with and should help at mitigating some of the pressure that Mike can put on these team fights. And wouldn't be surprised. Potentially you could see another one at some point, but I haven't talked about this Ganesh much, Myth. We don't see a lot of Ganesh picked in picks and bans, and haven't seen much of it this phase. A little bit sprinkled throughout the year. Pretty standard kit, but provides good instances of utility for the rest of his team.
And he's got an interesting interaction with Polar Bear Mike. What's the strategy? Throw up the wall, walk up, freeze. Throw up the wall, he's telling you to be silent. You can't speak, and you can't blow your frozen breath at me either, so Mike really will struggle in that situation. The Dharmic Pillars locks down this immobile target. Yeah, good luck landing that one. That dude walks through walls. Scream just avoids it. Doesn't need Aegis. He's got it built into the kit, too.
That's right. But you also know how short that cooldown can be later on in the build. Panatom blinks over the wall. Scream 2 levels ahead. But does it matter? Scream uses the beads. Pagon uses the ult. And Panatom will shuffle on by. 1 ult down, though Shinto used his earlier on. Beads off of Scream. And maybe there's your value for the Leviathans.
Yeah, Scream still does have answers to Palau. If you walk into the wall while a chain is on you, it's not going to pull you out of the wall. So if Panatom wants to make use of those burnt beads, it's got to be the instant Palau every single time. And even then, Scream might have opportunities if he's predicting the play to be able to get into that wall as well. The Jade Dragons have got some answers. Maybe the biggest win there is taking the Dueling Dragons off of Pagon.
A lot of
Gold's
damage.
going quick.
If Rongyu throws up the Dharmic Pillars, the Jade Dragons get the Gold Fury. Despite a little pushback from the Atlantis Leviathans. I was ready for Rongyu to sprint through that wall and try to make a steal happen, but didn't need it. Zapman still has beads, but does not have ultimate. And now an early swing for the Jade Dragons. Gold Fury immediately into a pick onto Zapman. Left side of the map. Now a wasteland against the Leviathans. And if they have fallen 3,500 gold behind in one big swing, and nearly 5,500 experience over the last few minutes. The neutral farm has just been more effective.
The Jade Dragon, it's not even just neutral farm. They're choosing engagements. They're forcing errors from the Leviathans, forcing these rotations over towards the soul lane. That's where the level disparity for Shinto appears. Panatom hasn't been allowed to play aggressively because of that aggressive play in the soul lane again. From the Jade Dragons, that's where that level disparity comes from as well. Pyromancer will go to them, so the Leviathan's able to close up a bit of that gap, but that is a consolation prize. It's not exactly the primary target. And it doesn't even shift up the graphs too much. I think the Jade Dragon's fine to let that one go. And even if they do, the Jade Dragons, that is, find a pick on a Haddix, I think we could be talking about an early Fire Giant with this type of composition.
Yeah.
Leviathan's got to be playing very wary on the right side of the map.
It's essentially 1.5 levels of lead for everyone on the Jade Dragons. Everyone was 2 levels ahead except for Finoke, who's equal with Haddix. But everyone a moment ago on the Jade Dragons was 2 levels ahead, their counterpart on the Leviathans. Unfortunate freeze on Arangu.
He's got to die for
Means
this.
Greater Scorpion. Or does he?
He's
Mike
not dying.
now pops the med and actually turns the tide of this battle. It's a double Palau and a double pull, but what does it matter
No ult,
when the Jade
Shinto?
Dragons can just walk away from it? Pagon floats away. Haddix forced off to the side as well. And it's all over a Greater Scorpion. The Jade Dragons felt fine fighting around.
Mike walks up and just steals. That is robbery in broad daylight in front of the entirety of the 3-man core of the Leviathans. Panatom finds the double pull. Shinto holds on to his ultimate for something else, I guess. That is a strange interaction. The double Pala, I thought for sure the Leviathans had won the team fight immediately off of that, but no follow-up from the mid laner this time around. Maybe concerned that, you know, those beads were still available, considering maybe Finoke would just CC him unit, or maybe Mike would channel Shards of Ice or something like that, but not the case. It's a massive missed opportunity, and the Jade Dragons continue to take more on the map. That's a Greater Scorpion for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of CC immunity and beads, well, Arangu doesn't have.
Okay.
No, no, walk away. And there was no Phantom Shell or Dash for Arangu, so it couldn't have gone through that wall. The Jade Dragons wanted to chase it down. But the sheer amount of beads and CC immunity that the Jade Dragons have, it's not often Panatom's going to find those big free kind of double pulls in this game. So you do wonder, again, how much that could have changed what we're looking at here, because it's been a steady climb for the Jade Dragons. And it's in these slow moments where the Dragons have made so many strides throughout their sets this year, where yes, there's no Pyro, no, there's no Fury up either, but still finding the ability to push down some of those important targets. Could end up being mid lane, could be more pressure onto Zapman. Panda Cat hoping for some more damage. Doesn't have his ult. Yeah, Zapman's on the back pedal just a bit over in the dual lane. 2 levels down to an Ishtar Myth, who apparently can push that lead well.
Yeah, Ishtar with a lead operates very similarly to an Artemis with a lead, where it's, hey, I'm going to walk at you, I'm going to press 4, you're going to get stunned, and I'll probably just kill you while that stun's happening. So, like seeing Panda Cat throwing around his weight while he's got it. Fortunately for Zapman, he's playing like the 2nd safest hunter in the game, right behind Heimdall, so won't be too many opportunities for Panda Cat to actually kill him, but TKO is still very valuable in Smite, and every single time he does that to Zap, every single time he sends him back to base, that what is already a 2-level lead starts to slowly grow in favor of Panda Cat. We are starting to hit that point, though, very soon, where you're starting to consider hitting level 20. The Jade Dragon's experience gap is going to start to slow down while the Leviathans start to catch up. I want to see the Jade Dragons group up and play soon. And that's not something I need to beg from the Jade Dragons. They'll do it the second this Oni Fury's up. They'll group up and try and force a fight there. The question is whether or not we're going to see a rotation from Finoke, whether or not this Guan Yu is going to get involved, or whether or not he wants to just stick around in lane and control Haddix. With teleport timer around 30 seconds, nearly in sync with the Gold Fury pool timer, maybe Finoke just teleports to one of these towers and Haddix can't respond.
That's decent poke damage onto Pagon. Panatom dashes forward. My lord, Mike is getting chunked down, but dodges everything, just wanders over to the right. And Shinto had sent all his damage left, so Mike will live. Again, I had wondered if Panatom would have sent up the ultimate, forced Mike into his, but no. Leviathan's happy with just an Oni Fury advantage. Dark Pillar's down, it's burning quickly. It's over to the Leviathans. Haddix, though, now being chased by a few members of the Jade Dragons. Ma out from Zapman. Lots of ultimates getting spent right now. Most of them whiffing. And so Oni Fury just on the back of a health advantage to the Leviathans.
Yeah, Mike just took way too much damage there, was forced back to base. Whoa. Speaking of too much damage, the Leviathans rapidly reconsidering whether or not this Tier 1 is worth defending, and they make the right decision, let that one go. Tier 1 falls down, so it's gold for Tier 1. Whether or not the Jade Dragons can continue going, and it seems like it's not a question, they just will really be the determining factor in how this gold experience starts to shake out. Tier 1, Greater Scorpion, Pyromancer, and another Greater Scorpion for Gold Fury, or Oni Fury. Yeah, I mean, the charts don't lie. That's a fine trade.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons will extend on that lead just a bit, and they've got another couple immediate areas of gold increase with the Tier 1 towers over in solo and duo. Those are really, really low. Just a couple of waves to push those down, though the Leviathans have the same opportunity. I'm surprised that Zap's tower hasn't dropped already with how much pressure Panda Cat was putting on Zap over on left. It's an Emperor's Armor pickup now for Wrong You Myth, and we've seen Emperor's Armor for two totally different reasons. Second item in the build, either you are
Getting owned or
jamming
owning.
or
Yeah.
you're getting jammed, and right now the Leviathans, I think they get the feeling that they're going to be underneath their towers and their Phoenixes here for a little bit.
Yeah, Rongyu's like, guys, do not concern yourselves. I know none of you have any money. The towers will be doing more damage. You
That's
don't
right.
need itemization.
That's right.
Won't exactly help you in the Fire Giant pit, though. It seems the Jade Dragons have got eyes for it. Wrongyu doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of Mike.
I got a buff for you.
Lose too much HP. What's up?
Emperor's Armor,
Uh-huh.
the increased damage that those towers do,
Yeah.
you get as a player. So
Like it
it's
shows
just-
on your stats.
Yeah.
That's not a buff.
That's a huge buff. Everyone's going to be buying it more often. Tactics going to get run down by Final K here, who gallops through the middle of the team fight. And with the stun onto Shinto, forces the Dharmic Pillars out of Wrongyu. Double stun from Panda Cat, but the Moss stun from Zapman, it's great as well.
Yikes.
Mike did pick up an Aegis.
Didn't
It
help.
immunes out the Earthshaker, and a double powwow on the other end means the Leviathans win this fight, and it's only Mike who drops.
Yeah, the Jade Dragon just chase out so far there. I thought it was all just jockeying for position around the Fire Giant pit. Step up, get some deep wards, back up, and force the Leviathans to walk at you. The Jade Dragons wanted to cut out the middleman, didn't want to give the Leviathans the opportunity to make the decision of whether or not they wanted to defend the fire, and instead had the easy decision of getting the value of their Emperor's Armor in their own Tier 2 tower.
That's right.
So I think had the Jade Dragon just played a little bit slower there, which is a hard ask for the Jade Dragons, probably would have just, forced the fight in a bit more of a good position for the Dragons, some neutral territory engagements, but instead it's the Leviathans who take a small win, take out Mike, but the major win is taking out, what is that, just about every single relic, barring 2 sets of beads. That's nice for the Levi's.
Leviathans only better in the Zapman relic department. Still just set of
Doing
beads
great.
for solo, set of beads for jungler. You're right. Zapman is the king of just buying his time, right? Fell behind in that lane, but didn't give up a mountain of kills to Panda Cat. Couple level deficit. I'm not going to argue that that's a good thing.
No.
My argument is that it could have been a lot worse, and he's held on to the beads and the shell for a little while, and now starts to climb back up.
So you're telling me a Charybdis was able to play safe in lane?
Yeah, believe it or not,
That's crazy.
Charybdis with beads and shell
Good lord.
only died the one time.
Well, technically 2 sets of beads because your ultimate's
'Cause your
got CC
ultimate's got-
immunity. The third ability's essentially got
Yeah,
some CC
right.
immunity in there. You might not allow to be able to buy beads and Aegis, but that is literally what her third ability
And what's
does.
worse, Myth, if you're about to get dove on or stunned or something like that, and I'm in my ultimate, I can actually stun you
That's right.
on your way into me.
We're not hitting those super often, though.
No. But if necessary, it's another option. I don't know if that factors into the safety conversation.
And what if you're
quite as
low
heavily.
HP and then you kill him with it and you could do it again?
But I can do it another time?
That's right.
That seems-
up to 6 times, I think.
That seems super safe.
Yeah.
I'm
And
buying.
it extends the entire timer of your ultimate, so
I'm
you got
buying
even more
Charybdis
CC
stock.
immunity.
Yeah, but I'm going to buy Charybdis stock and then sell it the moment we can buy beads and Aegis
he's
together
stuck.
again. Haddix
No, he's not.
wanders through the wall thanks to the Phantom Shell of Wrongyu. What does that burn? Burns the what charges of the ultimate from screen. We'll get that back quickly. Really, Phantom Shell being down. Maybe the big win there for the Jade Dragons, who are considering a Fire Giant pull. Remember, they still have a decent little lead built up here. Not as attractive as it once was, but still positioning and probably the mental advantage here in this game, the Jade Dragons. Not a team that wants to let the Leviathans finish closing up this gap over the next few minutes.
Yeah, experience already starting to mean less and less. Wrongyu considering stepping forward. A wall freeze could be a death sentence, but seems like the Jade Dragons
Watch out for Earthshaker.
prefer the objective. Reset, don't take too much damage. Should be able to resustain just through HP 5 or lifesteal for Panda Cat. I'm surprised to see that. I'd expected the Jade Dragons to be Jazzberry jamming, for lack of a better term. I mean, Wrongyu, no shell. As of now, it means any wall likely will find value on Shinto, Haddix, not Zapman, maybe Panatom, depending on whether or not he's got some allies nearby.
With the amount of coin flip fire giants we've seen, though, Miff, I feel like we've gotta, and ones that go wrong.
Yep.
I feel like we've gotta praise the Dragons for not coin flipping when there's an Earthshaker on the other side. Right? I mean, it's against their aggressive, in-your-face, we're doing it regardless play style. But last weekend, we saw so many steals, we saw so many games lost, even weeks prior, on teams coin flipping these fire giants with just one member of the other team there. And so you won't catch me disagreeing with the Dragons wandering away from the FG. Now with Haddix over on left, does have teleport. It's an immediate advantage.
Well, so much faster.
Oh no, it better not get stolen, I swear to, okay,
Ooh.
good. The Dragons confirm the FG, but there was an Earthshaker headed right for the middle of the fire giant pit. And the Jade Dragons find their advantage, force the teleport out of Haddix, and get fire giant on all 5 at 24 minutes.
Haddix at least able to deal with the Trebuchet, I suppose, so won't have to worry about split push from the Jade Dragons PvE. Maybe just actual
Just gonna go
push.
over there anyway.
Yeah, just go take that. I mean, the wave's already pushed up. Yeah, grab that tier 2. You can heat check the Phoenix with this minion wave. If they do show up, the Leviathans back up to the Gold Fury, or potentially a tier 2 in mid. You know there's not going to be a teleport from Haddix. Just now starting his back. The Jade Dragons might be able to blitz this one.
They might be able to, just like they did with the fire giant back. Completed by the Atlantis Leviathans. The Leviathans pushed down a bit of the farm on right, knocked down a tower, considered some jungle farm. It's what Panatom's doing. Panatom's still lurking, so Panatom never went back.
He knew. He knew there was no
Right.
risk.
Well, right, I mean, that's probably a call by the Leviathans just to give up this tier 2 anyway. So low chance that the Daji was immediately needed. The Jade Dragons will get maximum value out of the first couple minutes of their
money.
fire giant buff. They are filthy rich. 12K at least, and it's gonna get a lot higher here. Yeah, 300 or so more gold for everyone to go back and spend up. And the Leviathans, Miff, they're up against it here. I thought there was a surge back into this game, but now it's been wrestled right back to the Dragons.
Dragons can back, spend up all that gold, maybe upgrade some of their own relics. Still waiting on the beads upgrades for a couple targets. Scream would really benefit from an upgraded blink as well. Instead, has eyes on the rest of his build.
This
Bump
game
the
has been a
spear.
bloodbath.
Has it?
Yeah, I mean, my goodness.
5 kills?
Yeah.
5 and 26? I mean, look, any amount of death is too much if you ask me.
On the battleground. Are you advocating for minions right now?
I'm just saying.
How many minions are there in a wave?
6?
Right. 3 and I think
Are
you're
you
right.
fact checking me?
No, I'm trying to calculate.
You trying to calculate the amount of losses we take?
Yeah, minion-wise. And
It's
they
a lot.
And they spawn.
It's staggering.
How often do they spawn?
I think last year we released a stat. It was like 56 million minions
Whoa!
died in a year.
What?
Something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And this is as close to like Roman gladiators. We're just watching minions fall prey to the gods walking forward. The Phoenix might be no different. Scream pops out of the wall. All right, there's your pushback though, but the Phoenix is already gone. Now Panatom into the back line. Panda Cat's health bar's evaporated, but so is Panatom's. And he's got to choose his exit route carefully, and he's
Body
chosen
bag.
death at the hands of Scream. Phoenix +1 for the Dragons.
You've got a Trebuchet and Minion Wave already set up in mid. Dragons regenerating HP real quick. Shinto opens the door to poke, gets poked instead. I think that's your mid Phoenix defense gone. Jade Dragons gonna make short work of this one.
Root no good onto Haddix. Man, game 1, we are in dire
Panda Cat dashed
straits.
it.
He did, but
He's okay.
yeah, it's not going to be the death dash that we've seen a couple of times. Panda Cat will be okay. And you know what? I want to remember this game
Yep.
for when we talk about the Jade Dragons, especially towards the end of the phase, playoffs, worlds. We're setting the stage for how the Dragons win their games. And this is something we've known for a while. But it's worth reiterating when we're in the moment itself. This was not a we're bowling you over. Are you disagreeing?
I mean, the Jade Dragons didn't get kills,
Right.
but they were sending the Leviathans back to base on
Sure.
cooldown.
Okay, fair enough.
Invading blue buffs, greater scorpions, controlling neutral farm, running down objectives early on.
Fair.
The only difference is it could have been worse for the Leviathans in that the Jade Dragons could have actually got the kill bounties, but I would argue this is the exact pace of game that the Jade Dragons have always gotten. The only reason it's gone any longer is because they weren't getting the kills.
All right, so Miff's argument is that the Jade Dragons can't play objective-focused at all.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
No.
These guys are butt at Smite. Real good at deathmatch, though.
Just so bad. No, they forced down the objectives this game. It was just low kills. The Leviathans never really had their answer back in. And I'm not sure will. I mean, left side Phoenix, that siege was quick. Maybe you are hoping for, you know, what's likely to be an enhanced Fire Giant unless the Dragons get it in the next 45 seconds. Never count out an Earthshaker, never count out a Steel. We've seen crazier endings over the last couple of weeks.
One 3-man ultimate from Shinto completely shifts
I mean,
this
he's
game
got
up.
what? Fully stacked Book of Thoth, some flat pen, percent pen,
He's
health
reaving
shred.
souls, man.
He is reaving souls. If he hits.
If he hits. And honestly, we couldn't really buy a hit this game so
No.
far.
Scream's been in the wall. Mike ended up picking up Aegis. Pagon flutters away.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Beads and Aegis can't be in the game at the same time, so it should be easier still.
You would think Pagon is caught in the Dharmic Pillars.
There it
Silence
is.
onto one.
Got him.
Pagon does take half of his HP in damage, and Scream has been forced out of the back of the fight. Panatom finishes off the kill, but it's immediately traded back, and that's a 1-for-1. All things considered, the Leviathans might take a 1-for-1 trade given how far behind they are.
No, that is a great trade. Panatom makes an active decision, says, I'll trade my life for Pagon's. He had no qualms with it, no expectation to make it out alive. Wrong You certainly has that expectation. We'll be able to make it through that wall from Mike. Jade Dragons, though, they've got sustain, they've got damage. They can keep up threat.
They've done it all game long. Uh-oh, there's some chunk damage on the Panic Cat, who's got to be careful. Little sustain with the Devourer's Gauntlet. But the Leviathans have done enough, and now look, Shinto 3/4 of the way back to Earthshaker. Might finish the job on any of the Jade Dragons, but Fire Maidens have forced back Zapman now. So the Leviathan's sticking around here.
He's got ult.
Potentially risky. And the Dragons will get the Pyromancer, take a breather, and ultimately the 1-for-1 trade just results in a Pyro.
Anything that delays the game favors the Leviathans now, as they're still working on their itemization, their relics. The Jade Dragon's still certainly ahead in the itemization department. But, more importantly, you need to buy time for the map state. Surprised that Zapman leaves that enhanced minion wave. Even if he gets the Oni Fury here, someone's going to have to rotate over to deal with that left side wave, or you just lose your Phoenix. The Jade Dragons have already regrouped on the Fire Giant. The second they hear this go down, they're going to know who it was. They don't even need to wait, though.
Dharmic Pillars, Earthshaker,
yes!
The Leviathans get it done! Oh, it's a perfect combination. Wrong You plus Shinto equals Steel.
Oh my god.
And this game, in all likelihood, now goes on. As the gold lead's still massive, but the Leviathans can take a breather.
Left and center Phoenix respawn. Oni Fury to the Leviathans, Fire Giant to the Leviathans as well, and the Jade Dragons kick dirt. I mean, that is an awful situation. Worst case scenario. And it wasn't a group up from the Leviathans. It's just Shinto walking up and saying, hey, you guys probably shouldn't be doing this when I'm around. It just takes it so casually. Now the Jade Dragons get to think about their defense, because even with this deficit, the Leviathans are in a position now where they can start to push out some of these waves. If they can distract the Jade Dragons away from the right-hand lane, enhanced minions will make pretty short work of that right side tier 2. Leviathans could just start pushing mid, grab this
simple,
tier
man.
1. That is tough, dude.
Let me return back. I've been wrong about too many things this game.
So many things.
I was right about coin flipping Fire Giants.
Costing you games, too.
That's right. It could cost the Jade Dragons what should have been a waltz in and end game number 1. Now, left hung in the balance. What can Panatom get done? Hovering over on left. Still beads for everyone on the Jade Dragon. Still CC immunity for a bunch of them as well. And this is all just equalizing the map state, equalizing the gold. Map state will be the exact same, except for some hobbled Phoenixes after this
Good
tier
Lord.
2 tower drops. Yeah, what, Panatom chunking the tower or
Is that
something?
450?
Yeah, that was a lot. My goodness, what a turnaround this has been. And so it's up to Panatom and the rest of the Leviathans. Maybe just tilt this game back in their favor. Still down 6,000 gold. They were down like 10K, 12K after that Fire Giant.
Jade Dragons still have fight potential and pick potential. It's not easy to siege against a Ymir. It's not easy to siege against a Yu Huang who could just find these massive single or double pulls. So the Leviathan's not in the clear just yet and haven't spent the gold they've acquired from clearing out all these towers either. So gold disparity cut, but not on board. Jade Dragons still have a significant advantage in that regard. Should be able to put up some form of a defense, but it's about getting on to Shinto, I think. That's the clear target. My man is putting up so much damage. Might not be landing the ultimates in PvP situations, but Meatball plus Backfire, I think enough. Scream's been struggling to find that target. If you could just drop him down to half HP or clip him with a Tear the Veil, would be enough for the Jade Dragons to find their opening.
A little bit of damage onto Panatom. These Leviathans refuse to lose. That has been the name of the game here in Phase 3. Lots of contested sets, but finding a way to win.
It's a good poke.
Has been it for the Leviathans. And this game is no different. Still very much in the balance, but the fact that this is now even contested at 34 minutes after the way that this game started, unbelievable. Myth, we are picking up right where we left off last weekend with ridiculous games of Smite. And now it's just a steal from Shinto and Rongyu that tilt things back. So a bit of a slow push. Jade Dragons won't bite. And yeah, let's head back, finish up this tier 2 tower. Only 30 seconds left on the enhanced Fire Giant, so we wondered if it would be more delay or game-ending type FG. Ends up just delaying. Equalizes the gold in all reality, still a few thousand behind, but really only the supports not finished in their builds just yet. A couple relic upgrades still make a difference. You still favoring the Dragons?
Their team fight's still real good. You know, Scream didn't get to do a whole lot in that last fight because Kleina's not great on base defense, pretty good in jungle fights. We're essentially reset back to about a 3,000 deficit, right? But the Jade Dragons still are in the lead. Map state still favors them as well, considering those mid and left Phoenixes are weakened. The Leviathans certainly going to be playing with a bit more confidence than they were previously, but the Jade Dragons...
You think the Dragons just pull the FG?
I'm pretty sure they will, but
Oh my
maybe
God.
don't drop it too low this time. You're looking for the fight, not the objective, unless Pagon's willing to dueling Dragons it.
Yeah,
but
wonder
if
if
history's
there's
any indicator, he's not, so...
What if there's enough coordination to pick it up and
yeah.
drop it immediately when the Earthshaker comes out?
Oh, for sure.
Right, I mean, it's just when you're in the heat of the moment, it's got to be a clean stop. One guy keeps his DPS up, it drops into that threshold too heavily. Because you got to bait the hook enough where Shinto's like, oh, I should use this now and steal it. But it can't be so heavy bait that you can't
it's
stop
not a bait if he
DPSing
just
in
steals
time.
it,
Right.
yeah. I agree.
It's so difficult to do. Especially in a battle for what likely could be the battle for first seed. Remember, this is the last scheduled game between the Dragons and Leviathans, potentially before Worlds. The Leviathans will get the Pyromancer and backpedal their way away. Though in all likelihood, if these two teams continue to win out, likely run into each other at the Phase 3 playoffs at some point. But the last guaranteed match between the Leviathans and the Dragons, and Game 1 already hangs in the balance.
Keep your eyes on the junglers' positioning. Both Panatom and Scream have got the ability to be the difference maker in this next team fight. Scream needs to get onto Shinto. That has got to be his single-minded focus. And so far has been, for the most part, hanging out with his squad, wants to be a part of that 5-man instead of, you know, going for these flanks. Poking at Haddix, a great start. That's not just poke, they're going for it.
Wow, Rongyu held on to the Phantom
He hit
Shell
it!
that entire time. Rongyu was assuming that Haddix would be okay.
And he was right.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Haddix has teleport, can get back into this fight. Panatom, watch out. Oh, Haddix is teleported in behind. Panatom is there as well. Mike reads it. Dharmic Pillars catches out Panda Cat. Rongyu has to dash to the side. Vino K separates.
Yikes.
Beads off of one.
See ya.
Shinto deletes Panda Cat. And Scream hoping to do the same. Panatom and
Hang on.
Haddix
Whiff.
have been stunned for an hour. And they'll shrug it off and get back into the fight. A double powwow from Panatom. Oh, this one might just be over. The Leviathans steal an enhanced fire giant. They will run down Mike. They will get the D aside. Unbelievable. Game 1 to the Levi's.
And it's the exact thing we were worried about. Panatom goes for a flank. Scream does not. So the Leviathans get to set up a pincer, catch the Jade Dragons unaware, and there is no response. The Leviathans got to pick them apart one by one. The only one Scream was able to focus was Wrong You. He dies, but awesome. You killed the elephant. Every single other member of the Leviathans make it through from the brink. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. They just hold on until eventually the Jade Dragons with, what'd you call it last week? Some unforced errors.
Yeah. My
Wonders.
goodness. The Leviathans just now took the gold lead. Just now at the
Good
end
on
of
'em.
game 1. Took the lead for the first time officially in gold. They were like 5,500, 6,000 experience down the entirety of the game where experience mattered. This is a miraculous turnaround. And another tick mark on the coin flipping fire giants
Can't buy a
conversation.
Secure.
What?
Literally couldn't
Right.
buy a Secure if we tried.
Could not. Cannot. And it's been the case over the last couple of weekends. You know, of course, the Aegis conversation comes out here, but the steal on the fire giant, that's just good play between Wrong You and Shinto. You think Aegis makes a difference in that moment?
I don't think
Is FG
There-
Aegising?
There were like maybe one moment in that game where I'm thinking to myself, Aegis would shift this up. And it
Sure.
was that stray ultimate from Shinto that clips
Yeah,
Pagon.
yeah, right.
That's about it. Otherwise, I don't know. That one really just came down to macro and confirming your objectives.
The Dragons feel great about 85% of this game. Unfortunately, it's the last 15% where everything goes sideways. The Leviathans and the Dragons. This one's chaotic. Game 1 to the Levi's. Game number 2 coming up next.
One step forward, 2 steps backwards, yeah. Time's out, run out to use those big words, yeah. I don't need convincing at all because I know what I want. Baby, dig deep, it's time to make a move on my heart. What's it gonna take for you to love, take for you to love me? What's it gonna take for you to show, take for you to show feels, yeah. I've been trying to take it slow, but my patience low. Think it's time you let me know. What's it gonna take for you to love, take for you to love me, yeah.
There was something we were fighting about. Can't remember it, can't recall at all. Something about my mind, something wasn't right, something about me. You always win, you always get away. No matter how much pain you cause, I stay. I'm always left behind, lonely in the night. It's so dark, can't see the light. But babe, I got a lonely heart, and I don't wanna be apart. I just wanna be with you. I always wanna be with you, my love. Babe, I got a lonely heart, and I don't wanna be apart. I just wanna be with you, my love. Oh, oh, oh. close my ears, cause I don't wanna hear it anymore. God, it's always something about me. Never something about you, always something about me, only me. What's up with that? What's up with that? Have you ever asked yourself, what's up with that? Oh, baby, why won't you take a good look at yourself and stop blaming me? When I just wanna be with you. You, my love. You, my love. You, my love. You, my love. Babe, I got a lonely heart, and I don't wanna be apart. I just wanna be with you. I always wanna be with you, my love. Babe, I got a lonely heart, and I don't wanna be apart. I just wanna be with you, my love. Oh, oh, oh.
The SMITE Pro League game number 1 of our set between the Dragons and the Leviathans goes to the way of the Levi's. And if you want to support the Leviathans, the Dragons, or any of your favorite SMITE Pro League teams out there, then make sure you go over to shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL and pick up a jersey brought to us by our good friends over at Skulls. They've got one for each and every team of the SMITE Pro League. So if you've got one for your favorite team, or if one of the jerseys just happens to look really cool and you want to wear it, then go ahead and pick one of those up. Thank you so much to Skulls for being the merch sponsor and the jersey providers for not only our players, but our fans at home for Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. Game number 1, Charlie, though, Atlantis Leviathans, they kind of get rolled over in the early game. Sure, there's not a whole lot of kills going up on the board. I mean, we look up at 30-plus minutes, and we're looking at a 4-2 slash line as far as the kills are concerned. Dragons definitely going for the TKO strategy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was working really well for the first 30 or so minutes. But the Leviathans get that one sneaky enhanced fire giant steal that goes to the way of an auto attack by Zatman, plus the ultimate from Shinto, obviously, to really help get it there. But then from that point on, the Leviathans, who are 10,000 gold down, just have that team fight. And I think maybe something to kind of echo what Mifflin was bringing up was just the fact that Scream was never able to get that flank style of play compared to Panatom throughout these fights.
Yeah, it seemed like Panatom recognized his role pretty much immediately once the team was that far behind. It was like, I need to be trading for kills. If I can go in, commit my life to take out Pagon, for example, that's going to be a worthwhile trade, especially later on in the game where there was 2 Phoenixes down and it's like, we need something. We need to stop the Jade Dragons from grabbing EFG pretty much at all costs. So I think great play by Panatom just to recognize how much damage he could do. Even if it cost him his life, that's a worthwhile trade to make. But if the Jade Dragons were actually closing up some of these kills that they were going for instead of getting these really low health targets, it could have been real clutch. I mean, it could have been extremely clutch to actually get that gold in hand. It would help out a ton, but it just was not able to get to that point, right? They weren't able to confirm those kills. 40 minutes in, only about 9. And then once the damage came through, everyone, all the carries from the Leviathans were able to pop off, especially though Panatom getting that trade and just the deicide in for the end.
This is fun.
Atlantis Leviathans. Again, their early game definitely not starting off the strongest there, falling behind very early on, 4,000 or 5,000 experience. Gold starting to stack up as well. And again, by the time we're at this enhanced fire giant, it is 10,000 to 12,000 up for the Jade Dragons in gold. But Leviathans, with that wherewithal, Panatom knowing and understanding what his role needs to be the remainder of that game, makes those trade outs against Pagon, makes those trade outs with Scream, and is able to eventually get that wraparound along with Haddix. Because remember, Haddix almost died during that last team fight.
Oh, yeah.
Got sent back to base, didn't end up getting a shell to really help him out there, and teleported behind the Dragons. And then Panatom says, okay, word, I'm going to join you back there. And then it's a 3v2 flank. Leviathans are able to win out game number 1 and now put themselves comfortably in the lead in this set. And again, they only need to win one more. And to reiterate a point that Dave was bringing up is this is the last scheduled match between these two teams. And that goes for every single team in these next 2 weeks of games, these next 20 matches that are going to be played, is that this is the last scheduled match that these teams are going to have against each other, potentially until Worlds, and potentially for some, maybe even for the rest of the year. We'll jump into the picks and bans, though, for game number 2 between the Dragons and the Leviathans. See what change-ups do get made through there. I think early game, Dragons composition looked really good. The cleanup kind of helped out throughout the early game, but it really felt like the Dragons were maybe missing a little bit of that CC in the late game. And I think something that you brought up to me is maybe it just doesn't feel that great as the Amir with Shell being kind of the meta right now for so many of these carries.
Yeah, it felt like even if a great wall came through for Mike, there was 3 total shells and only 1 phantom shell at the time, but you can upgrade it so easily. So it just feels like that pick is a little bit overvalued at the current time. It does bring great pressure early, and of course the Jade Dragons got ahead, but I imagine some change-ups certainly to be made, and 2 of which have already been made. The Jade Dragons taking away that Daji and the Vulcan. I was going to say one or the other, but it looks like both are going to be on the cards, and the Jade Dragons do not want to deal with either. They're going to force themselves into the Morgan top pick, and that is going to be something that Pagon loves to go to. You know, a good Morgan ult can certainly hard carry a team fight, especially if you have some great transformations. Waiting to see what Panatom will go to here to try and like take that away, right? Because you got to put pressure towards the Morgan. You have to be. You cannot let Pagon free cast on this character. If the Morgan is able to just do what she wants in team fights, you're probably losing that fight.
Got to keep your sights on the mid laner. What a development that we've had as far as the carries are concerned with Ishtar specifically, a god that kind of coming into phase number 3, we're asking pros, you know, how do you feel about this god? Do you think she's all that great? Is she going to be like top 3, kind of controlling the upper portion of the picks and bans? And a lot of them were saying, no, not really. She's good. Maybe like a bottom 2 if all the other top hunters are gone. But some of the small buffs that have come her way over time, and maybe just the general safety that she has, and maybe some of that ranged poke has kind of brought her back into the forefront so much. Now we're seeing a fight over her for kind of this top 2, that hunter position there, as Ishtar Ymir are locked in for the Atlantis Leviathans. Option now over to the Dragons. Cthulhu, which was banned away in the bottom 2 bans last time, will now be picked up top 2 for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, definitely a smart call. It sort of forces the Leviathans into go double hunter and shred through this Cthulhu, or go a mage and feel the wrath of the double Cthulhu. That could be the call here. The Ceranos was taken away by the Jade Dragons, probably in preparation for this pick. If they were able to land it, they get themselves the double Cthulhu as well as a Cupid in the back. So team fight already looking disgusting here for the Jade Dragons. The Leviathans are in a position where they can't pick the AMC, they can't pick the Cern, and they can't pick the Vulcan in mid lane for Shinto. Not going to be easy. We've seen them go towards the Yu Huang, but you know, you have to pick something that either survives the double Cthulhu or shreds through it late game. And so I imagine it's much easier to pick something that shreds through a late game if you just want to go towards these hunters, but the top ones are taken away. And this is what I was expecting. That's Susano there for the Leviathans. It does give a decent transformation over to Pagon if you want to get active in the early, but Susano also really is able to deal with the Morgan, especially when that ultimate's down.
Susano, decent at chasing out some of these carries. Maybe not the best at killing a Cthulhu, so could be at least a good option maybe for Pagon to transform into that if he is getting jumped on by Susano early. And before it got locked in, I was actually going to ask you, with Cthulhu kind of coming back in, maybe it's strange to see that Nemesis has been largely absent as far as a lot of picks are concerned. It's mostly been this AMC when it comes down to kind of God Shred more than anything. Yep. But with Ardio and now Tyr banned away, something that Jade Dragon, we haven't really seen Haddix kind of shy over towards the Tyr anytime recently. Most of his games recently have been a lot of the Guardians or more like frontline style of warriors like the King Arthur or the Horus out there. So seeing the Tyr ban, wonder where Haddix goes with his picks like this, because now the Horus, the Ardio, and the Tyr have all been taken away.
Yeah, I did expect the Horus to either get picked or get banned away, and it looks like the insta-ban is going to be the call. And Athena Hover here, that would be interesting. It would add to a decent level of initiation for the team, right? Dash taunt on such a low cooldown late game can be something that really provides relic burn as well as just initiation for the team. And that global presence of, hey, let's fight a 3v3, let's fight a 2v2. Oh no, Athena's here. Now we have to change up our plan. Just kidding, I was baiting you, as so was Haddix, because that's just going to be the Xing Chen. We've seen that time and time again. I do hope to see a bit of a change up in the build, because Haddock has been getting blown up on this pick. You know, he's been building the Book of Thoth. He's been trying to get more damage built in. And once your double leaps are down, the Xing Chen is definitely pretty easy to shred through. Definitely easy to blow up in that situation. So I imagine possibly a change up in the build. But if you're riding the high of winning game 1, maybe. Just trying to win out lane, out pressure the Cthulhu, and keep building that damage style build.
Has been a win the last 2 times that Haddox has grabbed this god, though. 2-1-14, 3-1-7 were his final 2 slash lines for the Xing Chen. So it's at least been working out pretty well for Leviathans in that regard. I think you're right, though, kind of talking about maybe a slight change up in the build. It has been going that Book of Thoth very early on to get some extra power. And now the Jade Dragons are the ones who are hover the Athena, something you were talking a lot about. I think a lot of your points still stand in there, turning a 2v2 into now a 3v2. We'll wait to see what actually does get locked in for the Jade Dragons. This would be for likely their support role, considering the Cthulhu has already been locked. So seeing the Yorm hover has my head scratching. I think that probably not likely to see that one. Cthulhu and Yorm both not really well known for their support potential out in that regard. So I think more than anything, Jade Dragons just kind of holding on to what they want, or at least holding on to this one and hiding a little bit of what they want. But they don't have very long to pick, so it will be Athena and Fenrir as the final 2 picks.
Interesting. Fenrir is going to be one of those picks that doesn't have the greatest time 100-0ing Susano, as long as you're able to hold on to that jet stream for your immunity against the Brutalized, but it also forces the Leviathans into beads, and that's something that's pretty strong in this style of meta. If you get the beads down first, then you can go into the Morgan, get some more beads down if you need. You can just grab some with the Ragnarok and initiate these fights, and the Athena's going to be burning those beads just as easily. So it seems like the Jade Dragons have their game plan here. Pick out someone, solo pick style of composition, or just turn into double Cthulhu with the Cupid in the back, and you should be just fine in that regard. I think the Leviathans, though, have a same style of game plan. I mean, looking off the back, again, Susano for Panatom has been working. I have not seen the stop for it yet. Maybe it's this Fenrir, Cupid, Athena comp with tons of CC. Susano, no form of CC immunity, so really hates being in these cripple fields, hates being CC'd like that. If that's the call, then you know that Panatom's going to have to get active early to try and deal with that, or just sit back, farm till late game, don't get active until you have, like, Blink beads online, and then maybe try to make some plays.
Yeah, so far for Panatom, the last 3 games that he's had this Susano pick, 8-0-8, 12-0-7, and 7-5-4. So a few more kills at least in that last game compared to the prior 2 where he went undying, a 20-0 to kind of start the record out there. This is definitely a pick that's worked really well for Panatom. Now, the Soul and Ishtar conversation, whenever we talk about the Olympus Bolts, the Soul more often goes to Barracuda. Do you think this Soul is going to be going over to Zapman in the dual lane to couple alongside that Ymir, or do you think that Zapman's holding on to this Ishtar for himself?
I would hope the Soul is going over to mid because Shinto just looks great on it, and I think Soul is extremely slept on right now. The buffs to her are a lot better than people think. Just 5% scaling on Stellar Burst, but it hits twice, so that's 10. And then another 5 to every hit of Supernova, it adds up, and that's another 40%. Because it hits 8 times. I think Soul, the full damage burst build, can 100-0 pretty much anyone on the map that doesn't have a ton of magic prot. So I'd prefer Soul in the mid lane just for that, and the fact that Zapman's been playing the Ishtar. If you're not playing the Ishtar, you might accidentally dash in. We've seen it 3 times now. So I would feed the hot hand, keep Zapman on that Ishtar, and then give the other hot hand in Soul to Shinto because she's like fire.
She is fire.
Yeah.
She is a fire goddess out there. Now, maybe some flex potential even with the Jade Dragons. We know this Fenrir has gone to support quite a few times in the past. We know this Athena has kind of flexed her way around the roles between jungle for, I think, Captain Twig at one point. We've seen it go into the support. We've also seen it go solo. So do you think that we do have some of that flex potential, maybe seeing this Fenrir going over to PBM for the Jade Dragons instead?
I mean, if that was the call, we always do have that potential because it's the Jade Dragons, but no, I'm thinking Scream wants to go full damage Fenrir and take advantage of the fact that you can all in a few members of the Leviathans with the full damage style build. Soul has nothing to get rid of Brutalize, so if you get a Brawler's Beat Stick online, just try and get rid of a little bit of that healing. Like jump into Brutalize with a Ragnarok Bite, that's 100-0ing Soul pretty much throughout the game.
Well, we'll have to see if the Jade Dragons can fight back in and take us to a game number 3, or the Leviathans going to remain that number 1 seed. It all comes down here to game number 2. We'll throw it over to Dulcet and Mifflin.
That's right, we're getting a little bit spicy here in game 2 as well. The Dragons totally change up their composition. The Atlantis Leviathans have made a couple changes themselves, Miff. So, Shinto will be playing the Ishtar mid, Zapman for double ADC, double Guardian. That's pretty standard from what we've seen in the meta here so far. It's the Jade Dragons,
Mike.
that have completely flipped things up. Mike is on a bit of a journey here.
I just like that he saw Wrongu and briefly considered stopping Wrongu. He was like, no, I'm going to do my thing instead.
Yeah, my plan's better. I'm going to walk in towards green and just annoy Zapman.
This is a mannequin soul.
Oh, he got one of the smalls. He got one of the little camps. That counts for something. Mike
Got the
looks like
green.
got the green. All right. So both supports have found some value in their early invades. Panda Cat will get a stun under Wrongu, but not enough damage. Not nearly enough just yet.
Supports are so annoying, man. This is something else.
This is nothing compared to like Season 6.
No, you're right. They were just killing you, too.
Yeah, right. Now they're just annoying for one rotation of buffs. Let someone else have some fun in the jungle, Myth.
Yeah,
Not all junglers.
I'm not so certain that even Mike would say he's having fun.
Yeah,
he's out there putting in a day's work.
Right. Real hard worker support Mike is. Now I want to talk about this Jade Dragon's composition a little bit here, Myth, because not only Morgan, you would typically think 2 Cthulhus in these team fights.
2 Thulus, yeah.
2 Thulus, right. Got to be some other viable transformations here. I mean, Fenrir we've seen sometimes. Athena if you want double rotation. Heck, there's a Susano on the other side that's fantastic at soloing, given the B-Dagus situation right now. I think Pagon has got a lot of opportunities here in this set.
Yeah, I'm thinking early game, a whole lot of Fenrir transformations. Brutalize chases that one out.
Oh, one more auto, but no, the Jade Dragons don't have it, and Panatom can exhale. Shinto did a lot of damage to Scream in return, but Panatom looking a bit worse off. So we haven't seen Fenrir, period, in a little while, Myth, but Fenrir jungle definitely has been a minute. Trelly's thinking full damage, get in your face, insta-delete type of play. Maybe hoping to match some of the pressure that we know Panatom will have later in this game.
Or maybe
Or
just
right now.
deal the pressure
Or
now.
right
You're
now.
right. That does break the Brutalize, the only way that Susano's got any way to deal with it. So Scream still maintaining pressure, hovering nearby. I don't know if Panatom knows that he's there. Seems as if he's caught something in his eye. Does know now.
Oh, Brutalize! Oh my goodness!
Good God.
Again, Panatom forced to dash away. Mike also secures the red buff, where the Leviathan's trying to put some pressure back.
What a menace.
Should be first blood. And the Jade Dragons do drop first blood, but Mike able to rotate through and at least secure a red buff for his squad. And when you're playing on the edge like that, you're bound to drop off every once in a while, but it's gonna happen to Zapman here. No, not a stun, so Panda Cat will just deal some damage.
Yeah, Zap should be able to make his way out. If Panda Cat chases for too long, he's going to have to contend with Panatom very soon. Still has access to that dash, though.
Is the wall gonna go up? No, Panda Cat just sticking by, scrapping things out. And so priority number 1 has been buffs secure so far here this game, whether it's Mike dying for red or Panda Cat uninterested and going towards the purple, Panatom helping purple go over to the Atlantis Leviathans. Teams defending their buffs pretty heavily in the opening portion of this game. Scream maybe feeling like he's got something to say for Haddix here, who's got the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Ready to go for CC immunity. It's 1 jump away, 2 leaps, Brutalize on the other side. And Scream will use the beads.
Oh,
Final
you're
K's
done.
gotta have the damage.
Does he
And
live?
he does. Haddix so trades out a kill, and so it's not devastating for the Leviathans. Panatom's in on the chase.
Great Brutalize.
No pull onto Scream, who brutalizes away. Neither jungler with their ultimate. I wonder if either is going to hit level 5 off any of the minions that are in this wave here. And they might, but it won't make the difference. So it ends up being a 1-for-1 trade over in solo lane.
Yeah, I'm not certain how valuable a trade that is. Scream, pull back in, teleport's good, but not enough damage just yet. That was closer than I think Scream would have liked. Panatom, that's going to connect.
Panatom in
What?
trouble. Oh no, Panatom! He did it to himself. Final K with the solo kill. My goodness, Panatom joins Mike on the edge and
Scream
joins
baited him.
Mike over the edge.
That is, it just sticks around too long. Maybe calculated decision from Scream there to bait Panatom into a poor position. Final K lands legitimately everything. I know that it didn't look awfully impressive. It's just the Mire into the first ability,
That's
but
Cthulhu.
landing the Mire ain't easy. Not a double tap like that. So full credit over to the Jade Dragon Soul Laner, and Scream just still getting active.
Scream's here, and he's level 5. Beads off of Zap.
Good stun.
Fields of Love into the stun, into the taunt, on the CC. Fantastic for the Dragons. That kill, though, only closes the gold gap. The Leviathans 1,000 ahead
Haddox stole that?
early in this game. Looks like Haddox did indeed pick up the blue. There's some reasoning behind the golden experience differences that we've seen. The Leviathans have been farming the buffs effectively.
Yeah, where are these experience gaps? Maybe about 1 in the jungle, but you're favoring Haddox on the other side, right? That is here or there. The Leviathan's still able to maintain a pretty significant just macro lead. Farming split a bit more efficiently, neutral farm, or contestable farm rather, been going their way for the most part as well. Keep your eyes on the mid camps. Those have generally been controlled by the combination of Shinto and Panatom. Could be where a lot of that lead is maintained by the Leviathans, but it just feels like the Jade Dragons are starting to hit an inflection point where Scream can now start threatening Ragnarok, puts a lot of pressure onto these beads, could even transform into something like Haddox if you want to threaten a couple pairs of beads, and then it's up to Pagon with Changeling to actually make the value of it immediately afterward, be it a transformation into Final K for the Cthulhu. Pretty unlikely at this portion of the game. You're waiting until the actual team fight proper for that to happen.
Oh.
Shinto, just let it happen.
Yeah, Shinto had beads. Maybe didn't. Suppose can sustain up a little bit with Devours.
He's healthy.
So yeah, all right, we keep the beads. I was raising my eyebrows for a second there, because that was a really, really heavy amount of burst. But shrugs it off, heals up over the minion wave, feels just fine over on the other end. Now remember, Haddox and other solo laners we've seen, Myth, playing Guardians and the Xingqian, have not shied away from building into the damage style of build. That's exactly what Haddox is doing here. Book of Thoth, that'll stack up. Likely Breastplate of Valor for a bit of the synergy between those two items. It's like, it's a player after my own heart, right? If you ever play support, you just slam full damage. You're playing Guardian and solo. Might as well add some damage right off the top.
So that man takes a whole lot of damage there. Sunder used by Mike. So a little bit of lost kill potential onto the tankier targets of the Leviathans. Wrongu can make his way out with a bit more ease, or if you see a rotation towards the soul lane, which is an option for PBM on this Athena, Defender of Olympus, with that global presence. Won't be able to so easily take out Haddox either. But you're right, man. Not necessarily in your full analysis, and that Guardian should be going full damage all the time, but...
Okay, let's be clear about this, because that sounds terrible on me.
Yeah.
I was not analyzing what Guardians should do.
Well, you did.
I was saying in my own heart, if I ever play support...
Hold on, you might get bailed out here. No, go on.
I just like doing damage. I'm not saying it's correct.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's more fun. And so I'm not analyzing like you should be doing, talking about the highest level of Smite and where the...
Well, I was going to do that, but then you did this whole spiel.
Right, but I'm doing the spiel because you totally threw me under the bus. You steamrolled me.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you're supporting my game, building full damage. I am reporting you for off-rolling. Pagon in some trouble here, forced to use his own beads. So it's a trade out of the relics in the middle of the map. But as I was saying about this high-level analysis, going Book of Thoth on things like Xingqian is just too valuable to forego because of how much stats are on that one item. You're getting penetration, power, and mana, and then you could still go full tank immediately afterward.
Oh, Mike. Is he in trouble? No, Mike is going to get out A-OK. My goodness, he lived through a lot. Little burst of healing. Ultimate out. Why not? So some pressure from the Leviathans goes quietly. Here's what's important for Dragons fans is the Dragons themselves have closed up this gold gap now. Remember, it was about 1,000. And just through the ebbs and flows of the game over the last few minutes, things getting closer to equal. But then you start to wonder about certain timers that might be going on in the background here, Myth, because you are going up against double Guardian, double carry type composition here. Zapman, Magical ADC, Shinto, standard. On the other side, you're going to have to deal with two real tanky Cthulhus, kind of opposing forces as far as scaling goes, if the game remains equal for a little bit of time.
Yeah, if the game remains equal, evaluating late game team fight I think is a bit more of a nuanced conversation than it normally is, especially in a game that has double Cthulhu as an option. Generally, you're just saying, yeah, that, right? Like, that's the one that you're betting on.
Right.
But I look at the Athena for the Jade Dragons. What's the follow-up on Taunt going to be for the most part? Is it just the combo from the Morgan? If that's the case, that really restricts Pagon's allowed positioning. Generally just needs to be in range to follow up on Mike, whereas the Morgan would more than likely prefer to act as a solo agent in the team fights, play around the edges, try and isolate individual targets. So if it is Morgan, I mean, it's not the worst follow-up on the planet, but it is hard to come by, and it will expose your Morgan to the AoE damage that the Leviathans have got in spades, be it through an ultimate from Panatom or Zapman just throwing out the second ability. So the Jade Dragons, sure, have got the strength of Double Cthulhu, and that's always going to be stifling, but maybe not the most synergy from their support. Who's going to be, you know, allowing Panda Cat to deal the majority of his damage? We'll have to see how that pans out in the actual team fight proper. Whereas the Leviathans, their composition as far as ease of play, I think is a bit more standard. Lock someone down with a wall from wrong U. What is essentially a double hunter composition, one physical, one magical, is just going to do double hunter things where they throw massive damage auto attacks at you repeatedly. If anyone starts to limp away, they're probably going to be limping towards Panatom, who has been, for the most part, on the Susano pick, playing in the back line of these team fights, solo hunting mid laners. Pagon maybe struggles to apply that damage if Panatom's hunting him well in some of these team fights. You've got AoE CC initiation from Haddix too. I really like what the Leviathans have brought. The Jade Dragons, though, it still is really hard to sleep on Double Cthulhu. I got to keep emphasizing that because of how strong it is and how disruptive it really is.
Yep.
But as far as just inherent team synergies, besides the transformation, I think maybe a bit lacking.
Well, early into the shred for Shinto. Imagine we'll see Chin's at some point there deal with a couple of the Cthulhus, ideally in those fights. Now Scream goes into Witchblade. Strong here, jumping into these double hunters. We'll slow them down just a little bit. The Leviathans can shred objectives early. Blinks exchanged. Pagon off to one side. Yes, Pagon gets Blink at level 12. And then Blink off of Haddix. So some initiation, really from both teams now down for a couple minutes.
Yeah, that is an interesting interaction there. Haddix probably gets the worst end of it. Pretty unlikely that Pagon's going to be blinking aggressively at this portion of the game, so being able to use it defensively, especially in trade from the best initiations from the Leviathans, pretty nice.
Good wall, good freeze. This one's set up by Wrong-You. The Pyromancer down to half. Here's your first team fight of the game. Ragnarok has pulled back Wrong-You, but he simply shrugged it off.
Still alive.
Shards of Ice has dealt a lot of damage, and Pagon's got to clean up that kill. Double Cthulhu has forced back the Leviathans. Ends up being a one-for-one trade, though. Dash out of Shinto, and this is where the Dragons will tilt the scales back. Final K on the chase down. Panatom left running, and the one extra kill gives the Dragons their advantage.
Yeah, Panatom just has not got the damage output to keep up in these team fights. That one really was, hey, I used my ultimate, I used my kit. It wasn't back up in time for the second rotation, so tough for him. Just has to watch from a distance as Shinto falls down. I would argue that Shinto probably was in a position where he could have walked away a little bit sooner, decides to stick around, try and sink some damage into the double Cthulhu. Once you have Kin Size and Odibo, sure, great play. Go ahead and do that every single time, but we're not at either of those items just yet, so Shinto probably does need to play a bit more respectfully insofar as the damage output from the Jade Dragons, but even then, I think that's a pretty good look at how some of these team fights are going to look later on as well. Leviathan's going to spearhead with their massive initiation and pray that they shut down the Jade Dragons, whereas if the fight goes long, Double Cthulhu is going to reign supreme.
Luckily, Pyromancer to the Leviathans. Luckily for the Leviathans, they're able to pick that up. And so the one extra kill doesn't end up tilting the scales all that heavily. Does give maybe the Jade Dragons bit of a better idea of how they're going to be able to effectively team fight around. And that was our first big look at a Ragnarok that pulls one back as well. Sort of hand delivering a target in. And an interesting pickup here, Miff. It's Thorns for Scream. Have not seen that in a little while.
Scream is so annoying, man.
So Witchblade, Witchblade and Thorns for Scream. Yeah, annoying maybe the name of the game for for the Fenrir in the first 15.
Yeah, maybe a Shoguns as well, so some additional attack speed for Pandacat and himself. Fenrir is allowed to go a little bit more defensive in the build without sacrificing too much damage by nature of Seething Howl giving you straight up power. You pop Seething Howl, it's not just your auto attacks that gain lifesteal. You gain straight up power throughout your entire kit, which will help with Brutalize and Unchained, which means you're a little bit tankier. You still deal pretty decent damage at this portion of the game. Wall from Wrong U catches Mike, but nobody willing to step too far forward. Both Soul Laners have made the rotation, though. This could be a real fight around the objective.
Dragons learned from game 1, dropped the Gold Fury, not allowing it to get too low in the face of the Leviathans. I mean, in reality, when a game is this close, sometimes a Gold Fury is just that. I mean, when the players in these teams are so good at pushing the smaller leads to become bigger and bigger and bigger, sometimes a Gold Fury lead, one extra tier of item, could make a difference here in the first 16 minutes. Then you're also starting to wonder, okay, as some of the objective shred gets online, as Shinto, Zapman, they start to get a bit further underway in their builds. First Gold Fury could finally get fought over around a time when the opposing team potentially could threat the FG. And Dragons and Leviathans both going to have to consider that. So we take a deep breath here at 16 minutes.
If one of these teams is going to threaten Fire Giant around a Gold Fury, though, it's got to be the Leviathans. I don't think the Jade Dragons, with this draft, with this itemization from Scream, have really got enough DPS to deal with Fire Giant this early on, whereas the Leviathans, with Shinto and Zapman there, will likely be able to do it on their own. That said, Zapman would really like to slow down this game, still working on stacking up that Book of Thoth. Just now finishing the Obsidian Shard, doesn't really have any attack speed just yet either. Could be. We see the Nimble Talon as a pickup, giving you or transferring some of that power into attack speed a little bit later on, but that is going to be later on. And for now, Zapman going to be playing more so just like a standard mage. Maybe his DPS might not even be high enough just yet. Both teams benefiting from a slower pace, I would argue. Neither one exactly so far advantaged that they're saying, oh, awesome, it slowed down.
Wrong you. Always a threat with those walls. You can never fully know the impact of the Ymir wall until you get a good idea of the follow-up. Hasn't quite been there over the last minute or two. That's a double taunt from Mike, then a nice knock-up from Haddix on the back end. Zapman, though, he's being chased down by Scream, and Scream had no help. And so Zapman is able to live, but the health advantage is there for the Jade Dragons. With these double Cthulhus, they could chase down some targets. Instead, looks like the Dragons are choosing to backpedal their way to the Gold Fury. Health advantage Dragons, numbers advantage to the Leviathans. Potentially a steal opportunity now for the Levi's. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel out. Typhoon flies through.
Oh,
the Jade Dragons confirm the Gold Fury, but they have lost Mike in trade.
I wonder, can the Leviathans just go straight to the Fire Giant here? Scream dead for 5 more seconds. Mike gone for 30. And you know that Fine-OK and Pagon don't have ultimates either. I mean, the answer is made with Zapman's positioning as well as Panatom's. Maybe not an opportunity to look at the Giant, but Pyromancer is certainly a response. The Jade Dragons grouped up slightly on this side. Can't step forward with Wrong U there. We'll have to just let this one go down. So the Leviathans take 2 and the Pyromancer in trade for the Gold Fury, leaving us exactly where we were previously. Not a whole lot of moving in the charts. Gold still largely equalized as well. Experience, I mean, here or there, for the most part, maybe 1 or a half level for both Panatom and Wrong U. Otherwise, Zapman as well, about a half level there too. Dead even match, man. Neither one can find the opening. I would argue maybe a bit of desync from the Jade Dragons' decision making. 2 Cthulhus essentially running down mid, while Scream tries to finish off the kill on Zapman on his own in the back. Had they just played together, had the Jade Dragons played around the double Cthulhu in mid, they could have likely just dove that tower, probably finish off Wrong U, or had the double Cthulhu just fought around Scream, you catch a couple carries in the jungle, but because there was that disagreement on where the target should be, the fight generally fizzles.
Do you think it's a build difference for Scream? A little bit, obviously a little bit more damage. You probably get the kill on a Zapman, but
maybe? If he had more damage, he'd also be way squishier, so he gets like one-tapped by Panatom as well. So, hard to say.
Yeah, hard to say. Ultimately, what happens, though, is Scream goes too far in. Does give the Jade Dragons a slight lead, though. And so, again, you know, it was the Leviathans earlier on in the game who dropped a kill or two, but still found their way ahead in gold. Now it's the Jade Dragons who have dropped a couple kills and have started climbing up the gold charts. You wonder where this inflection point is then for maybe both the junglers, but my eye's really on Panatom, because this Usano, second to last in player damage, only above the supports from either team. You're underway in this build. You got Jotuns, Hydras, Titan's Bane, little defense after that, but Miff, you gotta figure that core 3 of items should give Panatom enough to find damage onto any of the squishies, maybe even some of the healthier targets of the Dragons.
He's got the damage. Hold on, Zapman. He's got the smoke, the 5-0 coming his way. Scream and PBM, they turn the corner.
Zapman drops ultimate.
Wow, is that simple? It's that simple? No way, it's that simple, right?
He said, "Why are you pulling me over?"
Yeah.
And they said,
Didn't think you'd ask.
right, and now he's free
Carry
to go.
on.
He's free to go.
That is I was like, Mike's going to taunt when that ultimate ends, or maybe Scream's going to go for something. No, just simple response. That man, too nice with it, I guess.
Slithers on away. Keeps the Leviathans carry on the map. The ultimate now down. Threat going to start getting placed on the FG in this battle for first. The Jade Dragons fall out of game 1 after losing a Fire Giant coin flip. That ended up being a Zapman auto attack, like 80-something damage from that. Greater Scorpion being fought over. That takes the ultimate off of Mike.
He brought the oboe proc with him.
Largely don't need that Athena ult unless Mike wants to go back and reset when everyone is grouped up anyway. The Leviathans, now their call is, hey, let's just send some damage towards this tier 1. They're able to drop the tower quietly.
Dash in taunt. Misses. Haddock's able to leap over that one, and the Leviathans reestablish their paltry lead. I take it back. The Jade Dragons cleared a minion in the jungle, so it is here nor there as far as the gold. The Leviathans, though, it just feels like they're playing with a little bit more confidence, doesn't it? They're grouping up on these objectives. They're forcing these fights. They're catching PBM, forcing that ultimate defensively. Maybe an opportunity now for the Leviathans to try and split the map, especially if they notice Scream on that left-hand side. If he shows himself on a ward, and it seems like he's dangerously close to doing so. The Leviathan should realize he's backing now. Could pull the Fire Giant here potentially, but Scream will get there pretty quick. Neither team necessarily in a massive advantage position. Levi's decide it's worth the risk. They pull it.
Fine, okay. Walled off, but he's got a Descent into Madness
Gotta run.
waiting. Oh no, Zapman has been melted through by the Jade Dragons. The shielding from the shell, enough for now, and we'll continue to walk out of this fight. Now, what can the Leviathans do while on the run? Panatom has found the backline, and Panatom gets out as well. Shinto, though, will get burnt through. But we have seen this story before. It's a 1-for-1 trade, and the Leviathans left at half HP. The Dragons simply too healthy, and Pagon is too good. It's a double kill for the Morrigan. Rongyu separates the triple, and it's Scream turning this fight.
Man, Panatom comes up massive for his team there, disrupts the backline. I believe it was a 3-man Typhoon, and just goes unrewarded. Pagon, though, needs some credit for that decision-making, realizes that it's pretty likely the Leviathans step back forward and try and peel out for Rongyu, and immediately just clotheslines Zapman on the rotation forward himself. I mean, what do you go in with? Blink 1? No way.
No, Panatom, he'll think twice. As Haddox gets it done, Haddox taunted away, and the Jade Dragons confirm Fire Giant. Might have been enough damage, but
hold
what
on.
is this? Haddox and Panatom have gone back in. Double Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Panatom too low. And it's just the one Fire Giant buff ripped away. Panda Cat was already missing it. Final case, Scream and Mike will live to tell the tale.
Yeah, but Pagon and Panda going without the buff, those are 2 of your key push points, right? I mean, it's not a standard Morgan build with a poly, so you don't really have the burst potential and structure from her, but even just having that ranged auto attacker would have been real valuable on Phoenix or on tier 2. Panda Cat not having it, don't need to break that one down. ADCs generally need Fire Giant to be that DPS on structure. So I think good trades from Panatom, goes in, takes it off Pagon. I know Haddox got credit for the kill, but it's just that dot damage. And the Leviathans, they may have extended the game just enough, even in just taking off those 2 key targets. The Jade Dragons really will struggle to siege up against this composition from the Leviathans. The poke potential from the mid laner, Shinto with those snipes, or even Zapman from downtown standard mage stuff. I'm not sure what the Jade Dragons can really do with this Fire Giant power play. It's not going to be neutral objectives. The Leviathans have already cleared the map of those. Maybe tier 1 and mid, sure. That one should be pretty easy, but tier 2s, expect the Leviathans to put up a defense.
Well, Zapman won't get caught out here. Sees Polar Bear Mike and Panda Cat pushing up that lane. And so could be cleaner around the Fire Giant in the last couple games for the Jade Dragons. At least in this one, you're able to secure it for yourself instead of it getting stolen away. But I still want to look back at that fight myth, because now it's a couple instances. Earlier on in the game, it was the case, and now 20 or so minutes into the game, it's the same thing, where Leviathans are able to maybe find an early pick, but largely left running with very, very low HP, where the Dragons just haven't taken enough damage in the last couple fights.
Yeah, I think a lot of it might be Shinto's positioning as well. When Shinto tends to die, it's just standing his ground, throwing out those auto attacks, and that'll work sometimes, but not against this full-in dive composition from the Jade Dragons. You're not life-stealing through 4 or 5 people. So maybe if Shinto just plays a little bit further back in these engagements, I'd like to see him stacked with Zapman a little bit more often. Things could go a bit better.
Dragons will still rally around a couple of their Fire Giant buffs. Now it's the tier 2s of the Leviathans. Remember in game 1, the Leviathans were the ones pushing and being pushed on. We really didn't see much heavy tier 2 tower defense. A lot of those went quietly. Heck, we didn't even see a lot of Phoenix defenses, with given how lopsided game 1 was at times. It's a wall up from Wrong U, a dash in from Mike, but the Leviathan's starting to rally a bit here. Looks like soft tier 2 defense is the name of the game with 1 minute left on the Fire Giant.
Yeah, the Dragons try and split up the Leviathans, do a pretty good job of it. Had the taunt connected from Mike, this fight goes very different, but now the Leviathan's allowed to regroup once more. Should be able to slow down this tower. Final K threatening the flank, keeps Panatom in the jungle just to make sure that he doesn't get into the Leviathan's backline. That should be it. That's all you really can do with this Fire Giant power play. Was it a tier 1 on left and a tier 2?
I mean, it builds you up a really good lead. You're setting, the Dragons have set themselves up nicely.
It's the exact same position we were in 27 minutes in game 1.
They were 4 or so thousand gold ahead. Felt in control. Though the Phoenixes later in the game were a bit hobbled, right, Jade?
Yeah. They knocked them down.
They knocked. I was gonna say, unless I'm completely.
You're right. So it's a better position for the Leviathans than it was in game 1.
Oh no. But steal potential.
Lower, much lower.
Right. You got Typhoon. Although Zap's ult could make a difference here.
But it was a Charybdis auto that took it last time, and it was a tiny one.
Right, one of the smalls. 80 damage from Zapman. Turn things back. And that's just to say you can never count anyone out from stealing it. We've seen Kepri dot steal away numerous objectives. Haddix could get it done this game as well.
Yeah, he's got a dot.
It's going to have to be a steal, at least if the team fights don't look any different, because again, even with itemization starting to catch up, it feels like the Dragons have just had the Leviathans' numbers in these last team fights. Dive in, double Cthulhu. Just a bit too much. And so Fire Giant up in the next 10 seconds or so. No big wave pressure against the Leviathans just yet. You still got a tier 2 in mid and right. And the left side, about even. Actually might push against the Dragons a little bit. Haddix would love to have the opportunity. And will get to do so, down to half HP. But it's still the Dragons baiting their line, hoping to grab a pick.
Ultimate from PBM there, wanted to catch out Shinto. Not going to get a whole lot. Get you decent positioning, though.
This is a split fight now. Pagon wrapping around from the mid lane. Taunton slows down Haddix's escape. Panatom
screams first.
With the Typhoon, but Pagon is transformed. It's another Susano, and this one is for the Jade Dragons. This one has hit Paydirt, but the real Susano has stood up and gotten a double. Maybe a third around the corner. Final K cleans up Zapman. Panatom with 3. And it's Mike and Panda, the duo lane, the last 2 left running.
You cannot count out Panatom in these late game team fights. Not on this Susano. He is doing so much for his team. These Typhoons have been too disruptive, man. There just really wasn't and a loud follow-up for that Cthulhu. Final K goes up into the Descent of Madness and says, guys, I've knocked up Zapman 3 times in a row. Where's the damage? And his whole team just has to respond, oh no, I'm in the air too. Nothing they could do about it. The Leviathans, now 3 strong, can start to move themselves forward. And they've still got a Hunter alive. Shinto has got the DPS. Maybe you can look at the Fire Giant. Pyromancer's certainly pretty easy, though.
Fire Giant's enhanced. Pagon will be back up quickly. Final K will have a teleport in 10. So it looks like the team fight results in a Pyromancer and a bit of a closed margin between the Leviathans and the Dragons. What do you think of the transformation option there from Pagon? Does make some waves in that fight, turns into the Susano, but then you're missing that double Cthulhu in that last team fight. Did it make some sense now in hindsight?
If Pagon's doing Panatom things, it would have made sense, right? But Pagon was doing Pagon, and this time around, Pagon ain't Panatom.
That's good, though. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty good.
A lot of teams would love Pagon.
But what happened, right? Pagon dropped Typhoon, hit 1, didn't exactly get all the DPS that you need, and then you're just a Susano afterward. Whereas he could have been a Cthulhu Descendant in Madness, and he would have just had it channeled the entire time. It would have been a lot easier for him to survive a bit longer, have his team rally around him. But instead, it was a situation where Panatom just walks up, and it's one more easy kill against the Squishy as opposed to a tank.
Yeah, I suppose depending on what your goal is. I mean, if Pagon says, look, the best I could do is delete a Squishy and back out. Oh, Panatom's build's real good at that right now, but the Jade Dragons, aggressive around the EFG. Mike separating. The Leviathans know this is going on.
Reset.
It is reset by the Jade Dragons. Again, I'll look at wave pressure, a bit of a push against the Leviathans on left, but those minions aren't really going to do anything over time. Still, towers in mid and right. Leviathans and Dragons, Smith, they can seemingly hang out here as long as they want.
Yeah, I mean, everything that is going to be decided is going to be in this engagement. There's no outstanding factors on the map, no enhanced minion waves, no real way for the map to play itself. So if you want to see either side win, it's going to come down to this stance around the Fire Giant. And it seems to me the Leviathans are going to allow the Jade Dragons to be the ones to pull that trigger. You got to be the ones proactively getting onto the Giant itself. And I can't really blame the Leviathans with this kind of composition. They want to create situations where Panatom can get into that back line. They want to create situations where these transforms are forced out early. I would like to see the Leviathans, we haven't seen it just yet, go up, maybe utilize the wall from Rongyu to catch out Final K, force that Descent into Madness, and then leave. Just run away. We've seen the Leviathans do that exact same thing, force the ultimate for Final K, try and finish them off. Descent into Madness Cthulhu is going to live long enough regardless that the rest of the Jade Dragons are going to get there in time. So we'll see what happens once, or how the Jade Dragons start to fight once they've lost that best part of their team fight.
Well, it's hard. I mean, with Final K and Mike, I mean, they're your primary initiators, and those are the two that are able to rotate out and make something happen across the map, I suppose. I mean, I don't know if you're... Well, you might. You're sending Scream and Pagon over to left. So here's the call now. The Jade Dragons
split push
are split pushing things out. They're not going to get spotted.
Zap's too far now.
I wonder if this is... I doubt that got spotted. I wonder if this is just trading Phoenix for FG. If you're the Leviathans, you see 2 on your Phoenix.
It showed up.
Are you backing?
Oh,
yes,
too slow.
everyone.
Can't back here.
Everyone from the Leviathans channeling their back. Now it's canceled. Yes, the trade... It hit, but a couple going back. Panatom is still channeling his back, and Panatom...
He can't leave. He's going to get flanked.
Stays, but the Leviathan's slow on the EFG. It's down to half. The Leviathans need to get this. Fire Giant taken by the Leviathans. Now Shinto on the wrong side of this fight. Stun is up, and stun connects onto Panda Cat. Cthulhu number 1. A double knockup. And both carries are in a terrible position. Rongyu with the triple freeze. Panatom with a double knockup, but it's simply not enough. The Jade Dragons have made waves. Pagon answers Panatom. He is doing Panatom things. It's a triple for Pagon. He might do one better. It's Zapman brutalized by Scream, and the Jade Dragons send us, in all likelihood, to a Game 3.
Levi's too indecisive in their decision-making there. Spend too much time twiddling their thumbs and trying to figure out what the response would be to the Jade Dragons. Maybe the Levi's were concerned about a backdoor attempt on the Titan, but with just those two, there certainly wasn't enough threat. And then just waiting too long, give the Jade Dragons the flank. Sure, you get the Fire Giant, but
Whirlwind of Rage and
positioning
Steel.
just not great.
Beads are down.
No way,
Whirlwind
right?
of Rage and Steel in 10 seconds.
0%er.
This Titan burning slowly. Haddix has his ultimate, uses it onto Panda Cat, who's got beads. I saw the horizon of a big Whirlwind of Rage and Steel.
5 in the fountain.
That's right, we don't cross that horizon. And the Jade Dragons, with decisive shot calling and team fighting, send us on to a third game.
Got to give credit to J-Mac, though. He called it in the waiting room. This one had to go 3, and it does. Much more convincing, though, I'd argue, from the Jade Dragons. This is a game that I think you were making the point of in game 1, where it's not exactly a standard Jade Dragons pace. They
I
weren't
got there
able,
eventually, right?
They weren't able to find the kills. They weren't forcing nearly as many objectives, but they still were keeping it even. And then that decision-making around that left side Phoenix Siege, so clean. That's on the Leviathans for not being able to push it up before they group up on the Fire Giant. If that were the case, if the map state were a little bit different, maybe that game extends a bit longer. But at the end of the day, it's indecision that I think cost the Leviathans that match.
Remember, this could have very well been a 2-0 set. If the Dragons don't coin flip things around that EFG, now the Leviathans play very well as a team at the end of game 1. This one, though, convincing for the Jade Dragons. Some moments for the Leviathans, but not enough. The battle for first, it continues. Jade Dragons, Atlantis Leviathans, game 3, coming up next.
Took me for granted. Don't recognize you anymore. Once sweet and caring, now cold and calculated. You can't be trusted. You want the world for your own. You want maximum profit. You lost perspective. I won't give you direction. You're always restless. Want me to fix your problem. You can't be trusted. You want the world for your own. I'm your maximum profit. I can afford to stay, so get out of my way. Smoking down the track and never looking back. You can't be with me anymore. You can't be with me. Oh no. Once I would let you in, but now I let you go. Honey, don't take me for granted. 'Cause I don't recognize you anymore. Once sweet and caring, now cold and calculated. You can't be trusted. You want the world for your own. You want maximum profit. I can't afford to stay, so get out of my way. Smoking down the track and never looking back. You can't be with me anymore. You can't be with me. Oh. Once I would let you in, but now I let you go. wanna take it slow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time. Needed some time to grow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time. Ready to talk, baby. Can be your rock, baby. Please come and sit with me or take a walk with me. I need to speak to you. Just wanna be with you. Just let me take you for a ride. Is there a chance that we could make another try? I think we're meant to be. Didn't wanna say goodbye. If there's a chance, just tell me how. Cause time is precious, time is now. Don't wanna take it slow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time. Needed some time to grow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time. No, I was dumb, baby. Just waited young, baby. I was too blind to see what you meant to me. The things you can't forgive. Didn't know how to live. Cause I didn't love myself. Wish I could turn back time, go back and do things right. Give you a wedding ring, give you my everything, and be there by your side. Share a life and have a child. Don't wanna take it slow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time. Needed some time to grow. Just wanna let you know. Ready to spend some time. I wanna spend some time.
SMITE Pro League, and this set is going the distance as the Jade Dragons will rally together and take game number 2 over the Atlantis Leviathans. So this was not an easy matchup for the Jade Dragons to win. Very close early game, very close mid game, but once we started getting around to some of these late game team fights, Charlie, this double Cthulhu that really kind of popped itself up within the team fights, something that was being discussed during even the picks and bans was how do you deal with this double Cthulhu? Early on, the Leviathans had an answer to it, but that was Pansum on the Susano. But once we got to these late game team fights, this double Cthulhu just separated the fight too much. The carries get picked out, and it's the Jade Dragons who are pushing us to 3 now.
Yeah, it seemed like, the situation where you're going for a Phoenix and giving up EFG, it's probably a trade that on paper the Leviathans were like, this is fine, but then having to stick around after you use your ultimates to confirm the enhanced fire giant, and then the Jade Dragons didn't just retreat, they went for the wraparound and still decided to fight even after EFG goes down. That's a situation you never want to be in, so I think just a bit of split play calling and also great shot calls by the Jade Dragons, knowing exactly when they wanted to fight and knowing also they could give up that enhanced fire giant there at the end to guarantee the win. I think just a lot of team fight presence that clearly Leviathans didn't really have an answer for once the game got online. As you said, early on, they were able to find some picks, they were able to scrap pretty well, but I think Pagon getting a triple kill as well as just complete dominance there from Fino K on that Cthulhu rather. Just so much team fight presence, as you said, and it was just really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, typical answers to the past on dealing with these double Cthulhus, or even just a single Cthulhu has been, okay, we'll pick up one hunter, or we'll pick up 2 hunters, or maybe we'll pick up 1 hunter, and then like a nemesis in the jungle, so something to be able to shred percentage of health and protections away from the Cthulhu, but there really wasn't much of an answer to that in this time. I mean, Zatman going for this very heavy power style of build compared to a traditional, hunter style of play with the soul. Even Shinto doing the best that he could. I mean, he got his kin size. It came very late in the game, though, before he was able to get that one there. And then even some of that percent pen a little bit lacking in towards the end stage there. So Leviathans did not have an answer to not just the one Cthulhu out of Final K, but should Pagon had transformed into Final K, which wasn't as often as it may have initially seemed. I mean, late game and even some mid game, we were seeing some of the transformations into the Susano. So Pagon showing a little bit of diversity on that Morrigan throughout the game.
Yeah, I think just because whenever Shinto and Zap were able to combine on the Cthulhu, Final K got shred through. Like, it was actually very quickly that HP bar was dropping. And I think Pagon realized that, like, if we just give them 2 big targets to hit, that's all well and good, but I could also just be Susano, who turns out can 100-0 people at level 20. Definitely a smart transition there and a good switch up, which made the Jade Dragon team fight that much more scary. So now the answer is, or I guess the question would be, you know, how do you deal with that? I would argue taking the Cthulhu away could be a good start if that's something that you just have no answers for. I mean, Final K had a great performance as well as giving Pagon that option, but just taking away the Morgan could also put a thorn in the sides of the Jade Dragons, because it wasn't so much the one Cthulhu that was the issue. It was, okay, now there's one Cthulhu. Now how do we find, okay, where's Pagon? Oh, he's Susano now. We were expecting Cthulhu, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Leviathan just decided to take that off away from Pagon, because he was just popping off.
That, or maybe even try and pick it up themselves.
Yeah.
That is, at least if the Dragons let them, because I think if we dial back to picks and bans from game number 1, the Morgan was banned away from the Leviathans. We'll see if Morgan makes it through. We'll see what actually gets picked up as we jump into the picks and bans for game number 3 between the Leviathans and the Jade Dragons. Our first set of the day, our first set of week number 6, and it's already going the full distance. The battle between the number 1 Atlantis Leviathans, the number 2 Jade Dragons. The Dragons can find this win, puts himself in that much better of a position of being able to take that number 1 seed, but also continues to extend that gap between 2nd and 3rd seed. Remember, at the moment, it's only 2 games separating the Kings and the Oni Warriors from being able to move into top 2. If the Dragons can find that win here, extends that now upwards to 3. But as we jump into the picks, or the bans already, I should say, Hades, Kepri, and AMC banned by the Leviathans. It'll be Cernanos, the Morgan, and Yamoja. So still sticking to the status quo for both these 2 teams as far as the bans are concerned.
And it looks like the Leviathans are just going to grab Ymir in that slot. I don't think because Ymir is that strong of a pick. It's just you can see what the Jade Dragons are going for, as well as just cement yourself some great duo lane pressure here for the Leviathans. Of course, Ymir has been the top of the picks and bans for quite some time, but you do get to look at 2 picks of the Jade Dragons before you decide exactly where you want to go. From your carries or for your jungle, that sort of thing. So now the Jade Dragons have that option. Remember, as you said, the Morgan has been taken away. Doesn't mean that the Cthulhu could not be a strong pick, but I think it loses just a little bit of that value once you don't have that double transformation there for Final K and for Pagon to combo with each other. With that in mind, Scream went for a hybrid style Fenrir last game. I think it worked out really well, able to get active early and then also live through the team fights as the game went on. And it was able to stop a bit of Panatom's aggression. I mean, until late game where Panatom was able to find those kills on the backline. So maybe just holding on to Scream's pick once again. That is usually the style, you know, waiting until, you know, 5th or 4th pick in the draft just to say, hey, Scream, you can sort of look at the composition you're going into before you force that character. But if Scream's feeling something, he'll call for it.
You never know what's on the mind of Lucas Spracklin.
True.
Screen the jungler for the Jade Dragons. But speaking of junglers, Susano open still for either of these 2 to pick into. And Daji as well, which is the first pick by the Leviathans in game number 1. Almost a snap block. So far has been ignored. Ymir for the Leviathans and Cupid Atlas for the Jade Dragons. Now, I want to safely say that this one is going to PBM, but you know that I can't safely say that, knowing that this is the Jade Dragons. So we'll have to see where the rest of the composition lines out to maybe get a better clue as to where Atlas will land. But Daji and Vulcan for the Leviathans. Winning combo that was good for them in game number 1. They get to run it back in game 3, Trelly.
Yeah, I imagine that's exactly what the Leviathans wanted. And I think you're right. There's no way that Scream goes Atlas up into the Daji and the Vulcan. It just would die too quickly, and immediately we are proved on that theory as the Bastet gets locked. And this is something that I was imagining from game number 1. Didn't come through. Game number 2, that is going to be the call. So the Bastet comes through, trying to get active in the early. You have to imagine that's something that Scream would want. As Mifflin joins us for just 1 second. You guys didn't get to see it, but he's so nice. We love that guy.
Yeah, that's the words that we're looking for. Bastet being that 3rd pick for the Dragons, we jump into the bans. Took a little while for the Dragons to decide what they wanted to ban out. First thing will be the Cthulhu, and Set on the opposite side. Maybe worrying that the Jade Dragons are trying to go for the double assassin style of comp for that mid 2v2 that the Dragons have run successfully multiple times in the past. The Dragons keep banning this tier away. I know that Aquarius had a really good run on this last week. We know that SOT had a strong performance on it the week before. It seems that teams just in general are a little bit more worried of tier now, maybe with the help of some of the buffs that came in the recent patch as well to them. So maybe just a little bit more enticing for some of these teams to try and prevent their enemies from getting a hand on.
Yeah, I just think it's an unkillable solo laner that's super fast and annoying is something that neither team really wants to deal with, but more specifically the Jade Dragons don't want to deal with. And they're going to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? Maybe they're not too worried that Hax is going to pull it out, but if he did, it would throw a thorn in their sides and it'd be, something they didn't want in their plan. So could be the call. With the Yu Huang and the set taken away, I'm curious to see what Pagon does go to in that mid lane. Currently, which I think to see Final K grab the Kakolin for himself. That's going to be some good initiation as well as some decent dive onto things like the Vulcan. Notably, the Ishtar has been able to make her way the whole way through these picks and bans. Oh, wow. That's something that Zap has liked going to a fair bit. And that is still available. So Zapman could go to it. If they didn't grab it this early on, though, would that be something that Zap likes to go into Cupid? It's got a decent matchup as long as you can trade out that ultimate for Fields of Love. You're not going to be getting hit by the mez or the damage anytime soon. So I imagine that could be something Leviathans have in their head.
2 more picks still to Leviathans as it is that Kakolin. Well, let's see where Pagon goes to his final selection. A couple of mages still open, though. Mages haven't really been the hottest topic for these mid laners. Poseidon maybe still, at least in the conversation, if we want to talk about some burst mages that have kind of popped up with the Beads Aegis interaction going on right now. Mulan being hovered by the Leviathans.
Wow.
Ishtar as well. Maybe no surprise on the Ishtar, but Mulan's something that kind of has been exclusive for Variety as of recent, so interesting to see that the Leviathans are hovering it here, Charlie.
I mean, they hovered Yorm and Janice last game. Yeah, I was gonna say. So I'm not gonna let anything that isn't a snap block actually prove to me, and it wasn't a snap block. They hovered it and then went to the Guan Yu, which is something that we've seen time and time again. That's gonna be absolutely no surprise to see Haddix take into the solo lane, as well as zap that Ishtar. That is not something that surprises us either. But the Jade Dragon, this is what we've been looking for. What will Pagon go to in game number 3? And it's actually going to be the Janice. I was just calling for Janice buffs the other day. So I personally didn't think Janice was in a great position. But it looks like in game 3, when first seed is on the line, when the Leviathans have it locked in and the Jade Dragons are trying to go for that first seed, Janice is the mid laner of choice here for Pagon. That's wild.
Not something I would have expected from Pagon of all players. Maybe Baronic on the Scarabs would be this one. I mean, he's one that's played it there. Hurrywin maybe even on the days of old for the Dragons to kind of go for a pick. So seeing Giannis as a 10th pick, maybe the most interesting out of all of those. Now, kind of talking about how Giannis changed up the dynamic of this team composition as a whole. Not a traditional burst mage, a little bit of a weaker early game, but the utility that comes from this god has got to change things up for the Dragons late game.
It definitely does. I don't imagine the pick was locked in here for just the mobility. I would assume that because there's, the Beads Ace interaction, the plan is simple. Go Book of Thoth, try to get as much one-shot potential online than late game. Through space and time, unstable vortex, through wall, hopefully you're looking for a pick there. I mean, that's got to be the call. Pagon loves making these plays. He loves going for these one-shot style of builds late game and just winning team fights. I'd be watching out and warding up for sure. Keep your eye on that Janice once 20-plus minutes goes through.
Yes. Good news for Leviathans is Barracuda's not on this team, so don't have to worry about the at least the Giannis magnet there. Well, let's see who ends up being the magnet for the Leviathans towards these ultimates. Even if that is that they get used offensively in that regard. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on to Pagon with this Giannis. Not something that we've got to see him play, I don't think, at all so far this year. And this is certainly the first time in this phase that we were seeing the Giannis break its way through. So for Leviathans, very standard composition from them. Just kind of feel like maybe just late game team fights is maybe where the Leviathans are kind of digging their heels in. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think as long as you're holding on to your escapes, Panda Cat's going to have a rough time trying to get away from Daji, but Janice usually doesn't mind, and I think Bastet as well. Like, the Jade Dragons have a very safe composition here, so they're probably just waiting to stall out and play for those one-shots as we were talking about. But the Leviathans, this is a pick that everyone has played so many times, right? They're all on very comfortable picks. The Vulcan, the Guan Yu, the Ishtar, the Daji, and the Ymir. It's very telegraphed what they want to go for, but it's telegraphed because it's been working so much. So I imagine Leviathan's probably feeling confident in their own draft, whereas the Jade Dragons, they got to prove to us that this Janice pick's going to work, right? I know that Janice has that potential, but Pagon's going to have to really show me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very standard composition for the Leviathans, kind of those top of the meta, run down the tier list, these are probably going to be your picks. Meanwhile, Jade Dragon's going for a little bit off the cuff there. The Bastet, something that we don't see very often, except unless it's usually with Scream or Laz. We're kind of playing those picks out there, and Scream is definitely very proficient on this pick. The Giannis, maybe the most out there out of all that, alongside that Kakulin. We'll see if this Giannis works out for the Jade Dragons. Can they bring it back and find the reverse sweep on Leviathans, or the Levi's continue to hold that #1 seed? Let's jump right into Game 3.
That's right, the battle for first continues, and one last time, Dolson, Mifflin, and Doug will be bringing you the chaos that's happened up to this point. Stealing Game 1, Game 2, bit more cut and dry, more straightforward for the Jade Dragons. Their team comp, their team fight, their shot calling looked fantastic towards the end of the second game. And so now we go one more, Miff. In the sprinkle of chaos at the beginning of this game is the Giannis pick. Have not seen it in many, many moons. Something tells me that Pagon's going to be sneaky good at this pick, though. Just the way that guy plays the game automatically gives me some bias that this is going to be a good pick.
Good pick? I don't know about that. Giannis certainly has got decent poke potential.
You have just had it out for me today.
I got it out for Giannis, all right? I'm not a Giannis believer. I just don't see that pick performing
Are we okay?
all that well. Yeah, we're fine.
You and I?
Yeah.
Okay. Things just seem different on our cast today.
Can I break down the Giannis pick or not, man?
See, this happens every time, Miff. I ask if things are fine. You want to just move on.
Divert and deflect. That's
okay,
me.
yes, please break down the Giannis pick.
I just feel like it's going to be pretty easy for Panatom in particular to shut down Pagon in the late game team fight. We talked about it with the Morgan. We've talked about it in the past, just in general, that the answer that a lot of these assassins, namely Panatom, and how he loves to approach a late game team fight is to hunt the enemy mid laner and make sure they aren't allowed to operate. Pagon's going to be playing on the edge of a lot of these engagements, just throw out the unstable vortex, portal through a wall, rinse, repeat on low cooldown. But Panatom, if he can connect the Trickster Spirit in the late game, there's not really a whole lot that Giannis can do unless he's playing on top of his team. And if you're playing on top of your team because you're scared of Panatom finding you in the jungle or finding you around a Fire Giant, you're not playing Giannis at its peak either.
He also has Blink.
Oh. That's something.
Yeah, huh? Does that change your analysis, Miff?
This guy's about to go crazy. He better pray that Panatom doesn't hit 5 first.
Well, he gets CC immunity when he's charging.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That's his beads.
Yep.
Do you think Aegis then maybe at level 12?
Aegis, Aegis would actually be probably pretty good up against Daji. But
what
so
world
is
are we not
beads.
getting beats against Daji? I guess that world is...
Well, Pagon's more worried about the damage than he is the power
right,
out,
okay,
I think.
sure. Huh, all right.
I don't know.
Here's the bad news for us, Miff. We've got to wait 10 more minutes to find out
9 more levels.
where Pagon's going to end up going with his second relic. We'll see if early Blink makes any type of difference. What if there's combo potential with Hunters of Bast and Portal, pull in from Scream, drop down the portal, deal a little extra damage, something like that. Could maybe be a dynamic we see for the Dragons.
I'm glad you bring up Portal as an offensive tool.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the primary reasons that I think Giannis is bad. It is so often just worse to hit someone with the Portal unless you are certain that Unstable Vortex is going to kill afterward.
Yeah.
Because that is like an entire second and a half that your whole team could have been DPSing somebody, but instead you needed to do 300 damage. I've been scorned by too many casual Giannis players.
It's a bad offensive utility. We'll see if Pagon uses it aggressively. Jade Dragons will pick up their own purple buff. Gotta be some aggressive usage, right? I mean, he's got Blink.
Yeah, you could like poke with it in lane for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if like Scream is nearby or Panda Cat's nearby, I almost never want to see it.
Sure.
Yeah.
The damage they would do likely better than whatever Portal is gonna do on the other side. My favorite usage of Portal,
It's through walls.
no, I was gonna say like the self-defensive, like I'm getting dove, I put it under my feet, and now I'm like out of
that's
the fight
pretty
for a second
good.
or two. That's the tech. When no one's building Aegis, you pick a kit.
That's got an Aegis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you, yeah.
I guess
You
that's
don't want to know what else? Every leap in the game is an Aegis.
Yeah, right. I guess we've been doing that. Oh, no! 0 for 1.
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it anyway. Pagon rotates through, and that's a 1v1 in the jungle. Panatom's still at level 4. Pagon, with the last bit of damage through space and time, goes wide. Auto attack does not. That's first blood to the Giannis.
I wonder how the rest of the teams in the league are reacting right now. You'd much prefer, if you're the Camelot Kings, I think, to see the Jade Dragons lose, but the Jade Dragons getting off to a hot start like that,
Right,
probably a bit concerning.
Because the Leviathans are 2 ahead
Yep.
of the Kings. The Dragons only 1. And so I suppose if you're the Kings or anyone else that's trying to keep pace with the top 2,
You want the second place to be
right,
losing.
you're considering first place to just be sunk cost at this point. We're not catching them anyway. Because if the Kings, or if the Leviathans keep winning, even after this set, it's going to be hard to catch them. Right, you want the gap to the possible second place to be as little as possible. But crazier things have happened. Could have a tough week for the Leviathans. Dragons could have a tough weekend next weekend. Next weekend it's going to be crazy as far as standings go. A little bias hoping that Valkyries suddenly make a run and there is a true battle to get into the top 6 going into next weekend. That would, because that's a serious battle, like avoiding, like
Fighting for your life as opposed
Right.
to your seeding.
Right, exactly. Man, next weekend's going to be a lot of fun. This weekend too. This weekend really sets the stage for all of the math and the breakdown. And this right now, a battle for first seed and either to keep some hopes alive to jump into the top 2.
Get used to seeing that.
Maybe dashing it if the Leviathans drop to the Jade Dragons, depending on how or they win. Keeps the opportunity alive. Portal through the wall from Pagon, and Ultimate now forced out from Haddix on the right side of the map as Scream and Mike consider putting some pressure there. Blue buff still a bit away from respawning. And so just some small value there where pressure from the Dragons forced the gallop away from the Guan Yu.
Maybe a steal attempt onto the Scorpion. Hunter to
No,
Bass
Hunter to
catches
Bass.
Panatom.
Whoa, how did that get Panatom, who goes immediately into the Palau? One chain is connected here onto Mike, and the second
Whoa!
as well. That's a massive pull-in from Panatom. That's unbelievable, but the Leviathans don't have the damage to knock down any of these kills. That's almost unfair. Great setup from Panatom, just simply too early in the game to get the kills.
I'm going to flip out, man. This is twice now in this set that Shinto is just not doing the ultimate. Man, just do it. Just do it. It's a triple pull. You got the meatball after. Oh, we're doing it on this one.
We're doing it
Okay.
on the freeze. Shards of Ice. Met with a portal from Pagon. Mike does take some backfire damage. Still, all 10 members alive in this game. Book of Thoth stack continues in mid. Only Pagon with the kill.
So at least able to strip away a red buff. All right, Leviathan's got something for it regardless. Just how often this game are we going to expect to see triple pulls from Panatom? That's probably the only one, if we're being honest. So a massive opportunity the Leviathans does at least net them a red buff invade after the pressure they are able to establish in mid afterward. The Jade Dragons, though, I don't imagine slow down their pace whatsoever. They have been playing very aggressively on the map, hunting for individual picks, namely around Scream, who has been haphazard with his ultimate usage. Doesn't seem to be concerned too much about holding onto it as a defensive utility. He's ready to initiate fights with the Hunter Sebastian. If you're catching Panatom like that every time,
Yeah.
as long as you got a little bit more follow-up, could be a bit easier.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, I mean, how rare is it going to be for Panatom to find some pulls this game? I mean, it's Blink on Scream, Blink on Pagon, Teleport for Fine, okay.
Mike's getting pulled every time.
Mike's got, there's only one, it's quicker for me to just say there's only one set of beads for the Dragons right now. There's conditional CC immunity with ultimates being charged and things like that. But if you're Panatom, are you just licking your lips at the possibilities early in this game?
I'm certainly keeping my eyes on Mike in particular because.
But you're not licking your lips.
No. I'm looking respectfully for sure. I think Mike's a pretty easy target. Otherwise, Pagon and Scream have both got answers inherent to the kit. I'd still be looking though, for sure. Yeah.
It's there. It happened once. But on cooldown, it might be tough for the Leviathans and their jungler to find. Luckily, the gap has been closed up a bit. Panatom was a bit behind Scream, maybe still a bit behind as far as experience goes, but maintained a good pace Gets the tier 2 hi-rez, so a little bit of extra burst damage early. Wrongu and Shinto think they can get done here. Red buff about to come back up. And that's a Leviathan's ward. They just saw Pagon and Mike walk over. But Wrongu's been abandoned by his mid laner, so no fight to be had. Maybe just delaying out this red buff. And be annoying with the wall. But also allowing Panatom to rotate over. Leviathans, pressure on red. Pagon not gonna ult for it or anything crazy like that. And so a red buff invade for the Levi's.
Yeah, Scream was on speed, so no way for him to get involved in that fight either. Well executed from the Leviathans. I really like what we saw from Wrongu. Throws the wall onto Pagon to force the teleport in the lane, so there's no way for Pagon to rotate it back in quickly. Had teleport, or portal rather, still been available. Maybe he can get over to the red buff for a defense, but because he has to take the scenic route and just walk over, just gave so much time to the Leviathans to maneuver around the map, clear out the buff, and now potentially take another fight. Scream, no jump.
Palau.
Oh, he's done.
One chain onto him, pull in onto Scream, damage from Shinto. I was wondering if it would be the risk. Earthshaker, no,
he
it
didn't
doesn't hit Mike. But Mike gets stunned anyway. And a double kill for Shinto, and suddenly the Vulcan starting to warm up a little bit here. Zapman with a nice rotation in, secures the second kill.
Can the Leviathans keep going, though? Gold Fury would burn real fast with a Vulcan and an Ishtar. Panicat can't rotate in. Pagon's already cut his losses, just invading the jungle. Massive win to the Leviathans there. Great aggression on map. I wonder if it was a sound play. Panatom hears the leap from Scream and says, big mistake, buddy, and just goes in. Or what, or they just got lucky and initiated regardless without the knowledge. But either way, great pick on the Scream. Grab PBM. PBM decides very rapidly, this is going to happen a lot. Let me go ahead and maybe move in towards a Magi's. But plenty of ways to burn Magi's, even from a range for the Leviathan. So not certain how much value that's really going to find. Wrongu could freeze it. Shinto could throw it a meatball. I mean, even Haddix could ult it, but that's a bit more committal. I don't know. This Atlas pick really going to struggle up against the Daji, so long as damage is maintained by the Leviathan. So long as Shinto can keep that build, keep the penetration moving, you know, upgrade and keep the gold flow steady. As so far as he can outpace Mike, I think Mike is just going to die every time.
Yeah, Mike's going to have a real tough go of things, especially when Panatom's around. Now, we wonder what Pagon would get at level 12. Does end up going back and picking up the beads. So the slight gamble actually ends up paying off. Pagon does not die at all in the first 12 levels, able to go back and get beads. Now it's a Pyromancer. This one quietly to the Leviathans. Though Mike attempting a steal will come up just a bit short. And Pagon now that extra safety factor if a Palau goes up and if it connects and he does not have through space and time ready to go. At least now you've got the beads picked up. Continues to be an X factor, though. I mean, we saw the early kill. It was really just an auto attack. Still don't know what you're going to get from the Jade Dragons. It's really around Vianis as well later in the game. That could make the Leviathans question some plays.
I mean, we don't need to look too far to figure out what Yanis could bring to a Jade Dragon.
We know what he's going to do, right, but
like,
shot calling
go
around
back
it.
to OG Dragons / Ghost Gaming when they always had the pocket pick Yanis. I'm talking about Hurry Win Mid. He's out in the
He's
lobby
out there
right
listening,
now.
yeah.
Listening. He's like, man, should have been me.
Could be. He could pick Giannis later on today. Earthshaker whiff. Shinto will lose half of his health and his beads.
Wow, fine, okay. Leaps in.
That's a good transformation from the Kukulkan. Uh-oh, this could be good. This could be good for the Dragons, but it's Palau from Panatom. Chains onto a couple. Both will stay alive through space and time. No good, but Pagon all the way through. Gets a slow, misses the portal. Panatom doesn't make it over the wall. Needed just a bit more time. Fields of Love. Now from the Jade Dragons dual lane on their rotation in.
Massive
Stuns
stun
from Zapman as well. But the Dragons simply have too much. They'll equalize this game and pull one kill ahead.
Earthshaker used a bit too early in that engagement. Tossed out wide. I think he was trying to clip Scream on the rotation in, but easily avoided for the Bastet. And from there, the Jade Dragons able to W key their way throughout the entire fight. Pagon steps up the portals, chases out. Grabs an easy pick on a Panatom as well. Panatom nearly makes it out with the Trickster Spirit over the wall, but a little too slow. And the Jade Dragons close up a bit of that lead, but the Leviathans have already done so much on map with the last team fight going so heavily in their favor that the Jade Dragons get their picks, and that's all they get. Maybe a bit of contestable farm. But other than that, no objectives we looked at this early in the game. The Leviathans, they don't lose out too massively.
Wouldn't you guess it, Miff? We're getting towards the mid game. Teams are, well, I was gonna say teams are even. They have not been even, at least in game 1.
I'd call that even.
No. Right now, yes. I'm talking. I was gonna draw some parallels to the rest of the games in this set. We were not even in game 1.
I mean, I don't think anyone would call you on game 1. Nobody remembers. It's been so long.
It's been so long. Game 2, a bit closer. Game 3 entirely up in the air now, about halfway through. Seeing the Leviathans get very proactive on their buff invades, their buff secures. We've also seen the Jade Dragons answer back in kind. It's the last 2-man team fight. And again, the hard to lock down Giannis ends up making a difference. Pagon totally flips the fight around, chases down Scream, or his own teammate, no, chases down Panatom. And that keeps the Dragons mid laner. My goodness, I'm all over the place, Miff. Something about casting with you to start my weekend. Just
got you acting up, man. What can I say? I have that effect.
Respectfully, though.
That's right. I should hope so.
Yeah, of course, always. Could be another scrap, though, in the next 30 seconds around this Primal Fury. Secure potential from both teams with the Earthshaker through space and time. Both could keep things. No.
There's the blink.
Yeah, blink off.
Both of them.
Still has portals. Walking forward is Pagon already. Goodness, half of Panatom's health chunked away.
Panatom needs to play defensively here. PBM's got the chase. Just going to take away some offerings. Created that space with the help of his mid laner. Love what we're seeing from the Jade Dragons, playing well around that timer. Primal Fury up. They've got control around the left side of the map, but still need to wait on some sort of opening. I'm keeping my eyes on Haddix in particular. He's made the rotation very early with that upgraded teleport, whereas FinoK can keep up pressure on the right-hand side, then join the fight a little bit later on. And I don't think FinoK is so concerned about the Leviathans just straight up pulling the objective. Maybe he should be, though, as they legitimately have. But reset, so no, FinoK is right. You can take your time.
Haddix not dealing much damage to the Primal Fury. He's got a weird spiky paddle thing, dealing damage back. Have you ever noticed that? The weapon the Primal Fury has?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a pickleball paddle.
Pagon, oh no! But he gets out! He gets out! Pagon will live this time and forces the ultimate out of Panatom on the attempted chase. Giannis does have to leave, and Panatom can stick around. And the pickleball match begins for the Primal Fury, not winning many points here. Earthshaker confirms the Primal Fury. And sometimes damage is all you need, and that's all the Leviathans need here to grab the neutral objective.
Pal and Earthshaker, though, used in the fight and confirmation of the objective could leave the door open for the Jade Dragons to look to fight elsewhere. PBM's ultimate, sure, pretty good. Pagon's as well, but not exactly massive keys to your team fight. Could be a Pyromancer pull, just try and force in the Leviathans. Take an engagement while they're a bit weakened. The cooldown department. Jade Dragons, though, walk over, and they walk over a whole lot of Leviathan's wards, and an early rotation from the Levi's, just enough to dissuade them from pulling the objective. So clean win.
Yep.
Once more, but the game has not separated at all.
These are where you kind of look towards some builds, but things have been somewhat standard. Suppose the big difference here is Pandacat's gone towards crit, towards anti-heal. I suppose Miff just hoping to limit what Haddix is going to do later on in this game. But those crits start connecting onto squishier targets with what I assume will be a Deathbringer. Could be some quickly melting health bars later in the game.
Yeah, could keep it interesting in the 1v1 if Pandacat finds himself in a position to 1v1 Panatom, or even Zapman should have a slight advantage in that instance, but otherwise, I don't imagine anybody's really looking to 1v1
Whoa.
Pandacat. Wrong view, no freeze, FinoK, no problem.
Wow, FinoK chasing down Shinto here. Another through space and time goes wide. Earthshaker onto FinoK. Oh my goodness!
He is stuck.
And FinoK locked in place. And now will have to watch his team try to escape. They'll be able to do so. Pagon also died earlier on. Stun from Zapman, no good, doesn't need it. Kashinto's got 2. Can Pandacat now be a hero? Fire Giant at 19 minutes for the Leviathans.
Scream, no ultimate, needs Pandacat to rotate
Give
in.
love.
I don't know if you could steal this, you gotta stop him.
Pandacat waddling by the side. Wall goes up from Wrong You. And the Atlantis Leviathans with 3 kills, Fire Giant and Pyromancer have suddenly lit this game on fire after a very stagnant first 18 minutes.
Yeah, we'll get a look back at that Panatom pick. Pagon must have been rotating in to try and peel out for Fine OK, and Panatom just catches him in the jungle. We'll see.
Oh, no.
Spots the portal. Rookie mistake. That's a simple pickup. Forcing the ultimate, but how far can you really get? Not that far. Well, surely he could keep walking straight. No, that is
Wow.
strange pathing as well. Panatom almost just delivered a kill there.
Far from the game-changing Giannis, I wondered if we would see.
It only takes one.
It only takes one, you're right.
One big ult.
Yeah, but Shinto's already got 1 or 2 of those. 4-0 on the Vulcan. Much more consistent pick throughout the SPL, and at least here in Game 3, much more consistent on map. Haven't seen the through space and time.
Hit.
Yeah. Have seen some unstable vortexes do some good damage. Now it's shot calling time for the Jade Dragons. Looks like they're totally fine giving up this tier 1 tower.
Static's gonna be all right.
But heading over towards tier 2 on right. Now tier 2 in mid, the easier target for the Dragons. They've left PandaCat alone to potentially defend this Phoenix, depending on when these backs get channeled. Oh no!
Stopped by wave, and Haddix catches one in the jungle as well. You're stuck here, boys.
Oh no! It's worst case scenario for the Jade Dragons. Luckily, a
not so
teleport
bad.
from Fine OK gets over. I thought that was a dead Phoenix.
For sure.
No, but Pagon and Fine OK get back to base safely. But tumultuous waters, unsteady for the Jade Dragons over the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, they may have got back to base to defend that left side Phoenix, but I don't even think the Leviathans were necessarily vying for a Phoenix with this Fire Giant siege. I mean, there were 6 towers still standing and 4 now as well. Plenty of gold to be collected on map, and we're about a minute out from the Oni Fury spawning. Plenty of time to play with on the Fire Giant power play, about a minute and a half on the buff itself. Back up, spend your gold, regroup, push mid. If it goes well, maybe you take a bird. If it doesn't go super great, back up, take a Fury. The Leviathans finally finding some separation in the charts, and just in time, as we are starting to approach that team fight portion of the game. I'm keeping my eyes on Pagon. This Giannis pick out of left field. We haven't seen any inclinations towards it, and really not since Hurry when played with this squad. Need to see it perform in this do or die situation, Game 3, and as of now, hasn't really impressed.
Was the last time we saw Giannis wrong you support?
That might have been it. Legit, you might be right.
Wondering.
And it didn't do good there either.
Nah, it didn't do great. And also, totally screwed me in SMITE. I'm seeing Giannis, or I'm seeing the build. I'm thinking support.
Yeah, they were cheating. That was unfair.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. No, that's what makes SMITE difficult. If I had a better memory, I would have remembered it.
Well, this is dangerous.
In what way?
Panatom on the right-hand side. Leviathans 4 stacked in mid. The Jade Dragons could force a 5-man engagement here. Only way you force it's by pulling this Oni Fury. You got to force the Leviathans into you. Jade Dragons do exactly that. Panatom, he started his rotation, but it's going to take a while.
Pagon on the flank. Earthshaker drops, doesn't execute the target. The Oni Fury left hanging. The Leviathans get it, and Pagon's got to defensively ult away yet again. Mike's alone. Mike's going to pull, but it's Shinto with his 5th of the game.
Panatom on the
5th
hunt.
straight. Panatom is able to go in as well, up to the Palau. And now maybe some chains to keep this fight going. Immuned off by everyone. Scream will jump on Panatom.
Wow.
The Leviathans didn't close that gap in time.
Yeah, split targets. Haddix decides to chase out Fine. Okay, good wall, though. Might just catch Pagon.
Pagon caught, blinks over the wall, and Blink Giannis pays off. At least once this game. Maybe one more time earlier where it was, again, defensive.
Well, here's the thing.
To get out of the fight.
That blink would have got anybody out. Him being Giannis had nothing to do with the blink.
Right, but I say Blink Giannis because when are we ever seeing that?
In the defeat screen, maybe, at this rate.
Yeah, if the Jade Dragons don't turn it around, Myth, that's where we're headed. They've fallen handedly behind in gold. Fantastic first FG for the Leviathans. Knocked down a bunch of towers, pulled their gold lead to about 5K. Still, you know, if you're still continuing that thread Itemization-wise, Pagon is okay. You know, 1 level XP-wise behind Shinto. Hasn't been able to upgrade the starter, but big, bursty, penetration, health shred type damage, it's there. It's just been on the back foot. It feels like Panatom and this Daji have really applied the pressure.
And he's done a great job of it. I expect that to continue. I mean, Daji has got really good options to chase out what would be the most slippery mage in the game. It's kind of similar to the Susano versus Giannis matchup, but a bit easier to execute on. Wait for him to walk through a portal, chase over the wall, win the DPS trade, especially if you've got those beads. You were talking about a bit earlier about the defensive usage of portal and how that might be able to peel out some situations, and it certainly could help, especially against things like 1,000 cuts, but very difficult to apply that if Panatom's playing intelligently around his relics, and has done a great job of doing so far this set, so I imagine won't stop in what could be the final moments of it. Fire Giant and Respawn, both teams starting to group up, get the idea that this fight could just dictate the rest of the game, and it's the Levi's in first.
Pyromancer pulled by the Leviathans. Fire Giant just around the corner. Dragons are going to be fighting in with a big deficit here in a team fight that hasn't gone their way yet. Fine-OK does not get the knock-up. And Shinto has plenty of damage. Space and time.
Look in the back.
Not sure if it's done enough. Shinto with the Earthshaker helps out on one. Panatom has ganked Pandacat in a second to the Leviathans. This is just another hand over fist fight win for the Leviathans. Pagon with steal attempt maybe keeps this game close.
He now knows Panatom's in lane. Blink forward, does a whole lot of damage to the wrong U, but he gets out of the Fire Giant pit just in time. Pagon, you gotta retreat here. Panatom, hot in pursuit. If you start a lazy back, you lose your life. And that's just another team fight where the Jade Dragons, it's a tale of 2 games almost. It's the dive attempt from Pagon, Scream, and PBM. Pandacat fighting for his life on his own, and Fine-OK just goes in and says, hey guys, I got the beads off Shinto, maybe we can do something with it, and nothing come of it. The Jade Dragons just can't figure out how they want to play around this composition.
Simply too clean from the Leviathans. Also, Pagon still running around. Pagon still just running around. Panatom's going to be able to stop the backs. It's a mid lane Phoenix gone.
Consider that back
And
stopped.
also, a minute death timer on Pagon now. Now, Fine-OK is going to be sandwiched between a few members of the Leviathans.
Good lord.
Interesting end to this game for the Jade Dragons. They were simply not on the same page. They're going to lose mid and left Phoenix. Miv, I think they might just lose the game now with no real attempt at a base defense.
PBM up in 7 seconds. Titan just now starting to take some damage. Scream, you don't win this 1v1.
No, you don't. Fields of Love down for Pandacat. The Atlantis Leviathans got back into this set in game 1. And they will clean up this set. Sole possession of first place continues for the Leviathans after a win in game 3.
So maybe the Camelot Kings real excited about that one as it gets a little bit easier for them to break into that top 2 position. But I agree, Dave. The pacing of the last 5 or 6 minutes of that match, it felt desperate from the Jade Dragons. It felt like they were trying whatever they could, throwing whatever they could at the wall, and really nothing stuck. That Giannis pick, I never really understood what the strategy was around it in particular. Felt like at times it was supposed to be, I suppose, a stim to your dive. Hey, I'll create some portals. It makes it real easy to get into that back line, but that was never really necessarily executed on either. Wasn't acting as a solo agent because of that Daji pick. He wasn't allowed to just throw unstable vortexes into the engagement. Just real strange from the Jade Dragons in the last couple minutes.
Yeah, nothing sticks there at all for the Dragons, which is great for whoever's got to clean the walls. Bad for the Jade Dragons. Great for the Atlantis Leviathans, who take this set in 3. Great way to start this week in the SPL off. Atlantis Leviathans 2-1 over the Jade Dragons. That's it for Miff and I. We'll go back to the desk to break this one down.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave and Miff. Game number 3, 2 Leviathans in the first set of week number 6 of the SMITE Pro League. And as we kind of talked about, maybe the last time, at least schedule-wise, that these 2 teams are guaranteed to play against each other, maybe until play-ins or playoffs later down the road. So a win for the Leviathans, definitely great for them, and making sure they can continue to hold on to that number 1 seed as they continue moving through the remainder of this phase with still, at least I think, another 4 matches to go for Leviathans. The further they can separate that first and second, the easier it is for them to be able to guarantee and maintain that top seed. And what a great way to do so. I mean, a difficult second game for them up against the Jade Dragons, but Game 3 really felt like that the Leviathans were the ones controlling the pacing of that game, Charlie.
Yeah, definitely. It seemed like the Jade Dragons were really trying to force something. I mean, even at that last fight, it seemed like any way they could try and kill Shinto, they tried. And just that Vulcan was way too slippery. It was like 3 separate engages that just did not work. The Vulcan did not die. So much damage coming through from the Leviathans. I understand the call, like trying to kill Shinto. It was a good idea. They just couldn't do it. And then the Janus pick, I think Mifflin echoed pretty much what we're all thinking. It just never really landed. The damage is not consistently there, and the one-shots certainly weren't there as well. Just a little bit rough for the late game, and the Leviathans, they never were out of control in that one.
No, Leviathans felt like they had it all under complete control throughout the entirety, really, of that game. A couple of moments, at least for the Dragons, who were doing fairly well for themselves, but we do have Shinto standing by for our post-game interview, so we'll go ahead and throw it over to him and Dave.
That's right, Shinto standing by with me after a very competitive 3-game set against the Dragons. Now, Shinto, I want to rewind game number 1 here. Technically, it's Zapman with like 80 damage that steals away the Fire Giant in game 1 to get you guys back into it.
No, it was me.
Was it you?
Yeah, I steal it with my ult.
Oh, well, somebody's got some questions to answer because I thought it was Zapman's little like 80 damage thing at the bottom. So it was you.
Yeah, it was me with my ult.
Okay, we've heard it here. Right, so you get Dharmic Pillars, you get the Earthshaker down. Did that feel like a desperation play from you guys? That game was going against you there in game 1, or did you feel like even without that steal, there was an avenue back in?
No, we all the time we were chilling. We kind of made like a few mistakes in early. That's why they put us behind. But we were chilling. We knew that if they pull fire, we have the Vulcan ult. We have the possibility to steal it, and yeah, I make it happen.
Now I want to fast forward to game number 3 here, where it's really competitive. But I want to zoom in on Pagon's pick. We certainly didn't expect the Giannis. Vulcan has just been very consistent for you. A lot of the other mid laners. Did that surprise you guys in picks and bans? Did you feel immediately prepared to play up against that Giannis pick in the current meta?
Yeah, for me it's kind of like a troll pick. When he picked it, I was like, yeah, we already win this. But I respect it because we banned Yuhuan and we banned Zed, and there is no Morrigan, so it wasn't like other like that good picks in mid.
Sure. Fair enough. Well, look, now you guys, you widen the gap between you and anyone else in the league. Control the top of the seedings for sure. Congrats on the big win over the Jade Dragons. That's it for us. We'll go back to the desk to finish this one off.
Yeah, so it seems not much of a care in the world for Leviathans whenever they saw that Giannis pick go through. Again, it's something that we were kind of questioning initially on the desk, something that throughout the game was still having some question marks thrown up, like what's this Giannis really out here for? Is it going to play this kind of solo assassin style of play throughout the mid lane? But never really got to see too much from the Giannis out of Pagon that game. Shinto back on the Vulcan, Panatom back on the Dodgy. I mean, when it's winning for you in game number 1, and you get to run it back in game number 3, it's got to feel good for Leviathans to have a combo like that they can just keep going back to.
He makes it happen. That's what I heard. He said, "I make it happen. Whatever we need. If we need a steal, if we need some big damage, we need some burst. I make it happen." And make it happen, he did. Shinto consistently being a threat on this team. You gotta love the amount of confidence coming out from a mid laner like that after a set, clenching your number 1 spot for the time being, putting yourself even further away from that number 2. Got to be something you're looking for. And again, Panatom, a phenomenal set as well. You know, game number 2 was a bit of a misstep, but still, you know, consistently finding that damage. And this game was no different, right? This Dodgy pick. It's funny because at the beginning of this season, Dodgy was like, no one's allowed to play this character. And now, with even less safety, you'd think Dodgy'd be even more of a threat. But he slipped through twice now, and Panatom's proved time and time again why he probably shouldn't be allowed to play that character.
Yeah, for sure in that regard. Also, I do want to kind of echo a little bit what was at least said at the beginning, the Jade Dragons, or I should say maybe kind of the lack of heads up from the Leviathans mid laner Shinto, where he wasn't really following up on what Panatom was doing. We had a triple Pow Lao right at the Pyromancer pit where no Vulcan ult follow up there. There was nothing from Shinto, even the team fight before that. Kind of nothing from Shinto. So it did take a moment for the Leviathans to kind of ramp up. Really was kind of that red buff fight where we saw Shinto get his double kill. That's kind of where we first saw the mid laner getting active there. Yep. But able to clean that one up, and Leviathans able to grab the set for themselves. 2-1 continue to hold that number 1 spot and further open up, or I should say further further separate.
Yeah.
That's the better word I was looking for. That gap between first, second, and even first to the third seed out there. Remember, it was, I believe, 7 games apiece, or 7 wins apiece for the Leviathans and the Dragons in this one. If not, it was at least 8 for the Leviathans. And so the more games that you have between you and even, I'd say if you're aiming for the top 2, the more games that first can have between themselves and third seed gives you a little bit more leniency as you start moving a little bit further in the phase, Trelly.
Yeah, I'm curious. I would like to get Zap's take on it just because I know, there's 2 opinions right now. Whether they're, hey, I want to clinch that #1 spot just so we can get a free ride to Worlds, or also, we want to get more practice, we get more games played. I imagine, the veteran probably just like, I'll sit by, I'll take my free spot, but you got to be happy about being #1 nonetheless, right?
Yeah, it's got to feel good being #1. We can take a look, though, at the schedule to see what we have left for the rest of the day, and you can take a look at the week ahead of us. Now, with the first set of the day, the Jade Dragons falling at 1-2 to the Atlantis Leviathans, we will close out our Thursday with the Solar Scarabs and Tartarus Titans. Then tune in tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. We'll start things out with the Valkyries and the Warriors and the Kings and the Bolts. And a triple header Saturday and Sunday, both of those days, starting at 11 a.m. But with a win by the Leviathans and a continued rise up in the standings for this team, definitely puts them in a much more comfortable position as we continue to move on. 9-1 as far as that's concerned, and that puts them at 10 of their 14 games. So technically speaking, the Leviathans could lose out the remainder of here, and they would still, as long as their head-to-head with the Kings and the Warriors is good, they could technically still hold that top 2 position up against the rest of these squads out there. Maybe not so, because it's only 9 with the other one, so potential for a little bit of an overpassing. So I think Leviathans, if they win one more set, can essentially guarantee themselves that #1, or at least that top 2 spot for themselves. But every win matters for them. 2 games separating them from the #2, 2 games separating 2 from 3. Leviathans got to be feeling comfortable right now.
You got to imagine so, right? I mean, a 90% win rate, that's nothing to scoff at, especially with the times we are in where it's very close. 2 weeks of play left until we're truly getting ready for that World Championship, which I imagine is on everyone's mind right now in every single game we are playing. And to be able to perform at this level, I know it's been a bit of a joke that the Leviathans, they coast through regular season, they don't care about their place, but when it comes time for World, they ramp up, but they've proven it time and time again, right? So it's not even that good of a joke because they're on top for a reason. They're just looking too clean.
Maybe it's the best kind of joke out there. But Atlantis Leviathans take themselves a win over the Jade Dragons to get our day started out. We still got one more set to go after this one. The Blood Feud Part 2 to the Solar Scarabs and the Tartarus Titans coming up right after this.